Hello everyone. This is your friend from Naruto Audio Fanfics, and we are back once again with a brand new fanfic. Which is what if Naruto became a mastermind, building an empire with Kushina Uzumaki, Part 2. If you enjoy this story, don't forget to hit the like button, thumbs up, and subscribe to the channel for more amazing Naruto fanfics like this. So without wasting any more time, let's start today's fanfic. Naruto sighed as he looked his hands. His body has gone through pain that had never thought he would ever experience in his life. He was sure that if he was not a Jinchuriki, he would have been died by now due to the pain being inflicted to his body. It was like he'd been put through a torture session by Orochimaru and Ibiki. However, even with all this pain, even with all the bisection, his skin never looked like it had gone through any of that. He would have to thank the Kyuubi on that. Despite everything that happened to his body, how many wounds and gashes he received, the Biju kept healing him. His muscles kept regenerating. It was like he was an immortal. However, he acknowledged that if things continued like this would shorten his lifespan considerably. The sick sadist doing all this didn't seem to care about that even if he acknowledged the fact. He was, however, grateful that his Uzumaki DNA had brought him a strong life force. At least everything has now stopped. He was free from pain. However, this time, unlike the previous times, he was left with a scar across his back. The Kyuubi had been unable to regenerate everything back to places. He would have to hide it via genjutsu. He was no good in it now, but he would have to learn. You won't return to Konoha for 3 months. Send that blood clone I helped you create back to the village. You need to condition your body to adapt to the modifications, Madara stated as he appeared before Naruto. Hi, Madara-sama, Naruto responded in a calm, emotionless tone. He was no longer smiling. Each time he smiled, this man would tell him to wipe the smile off his face because there was nothing to smile about. Follow me, Madara said as he turned his heels and away from the blonde. Hi, Naruto winced as he got out of bed. His body was still hurting, but he gotten used to pain. It did not hurt as much now. He got out and followed Madara into the dark passages of the hideout. Madara finally entered another room, before settling down on his large seat. Due to his age, frailness of his body, he couldn't afford to stand for too long. Settle down, this will take some time. Naruto did as instructed and sat down on the ground. He looked back at Madara and spoke. What is it that you wish to speak with me, Madara-sama? Project Tsuki no Mi, Madara stated, calmly. Black Zetsu has already told you everything about it. What he didn't inform you was that the plan has already started, and you will be working with other people. Naruto nodded and took out his little black book. Madara didn't react to this. The last time he peeked on it, its pages were just empty and the blonde only said there were just records. But he never explained to him what anything about it. I'd picked up on that. Zetsu stated that there was someone you'd trained and was currently going by your name. There is also someone else who has your eyes. I don't know who, but I do know that they are not in possession of your other student. Naruto explained looking into his book. This has led me to believe that the other student and the one with your eyes have already started working on Tsuki no Mi. It always irked Madara that Naruto was a bit smarter for someone so young, and the fact that when they spoke these days, the blonde didn't always look into his eyes, he always stared into his book. He could even flip a page while he was talking, but he never missed anything he said. It was fine anyhow. He still had a few years to manipulate the boy. My other student, as you say, is Uchiha Obito. I found him dying during the Third Shinobi World War. I rescued him there and brought him here. He wished to return to his home to continue his life, but along the way he saw that this reality was cruel and would never change, and so he returned to me. Naruto was quiet for a few moments. He flipped a page before responding. I find it curious that Uchiha Madara would allow someone to leave like that after he had saved his life. Could it be perhaps that you saved his life because you wanted to use him? If so, then why would you just allow him to go? At that time you were already too old to continue with the plan. Naruto paused for a moment. He looked at Madara for a few seconds before looking back at his book. That is, unless you had something planned. Since no doubt you had failed to convince him about the flawed shinobi world, which would explain why he chose to return home, another way to convince him otherwise was probably used. The fact that the boy already knew him in and out brought so many questions to him. Naruto was very different from Obito. However, he decided not to comment on what the blonde was speculating. My other student is Uzumaki Nagato. He is older than Obito and he is the one who has my eyes. There are still Uzumaki around this world. I thought every one of them would be dead, Naruto stated. He didn't even sound a bit happy about the fact that there were survivors from his mother's clan. When Uzushiogakure was destroyed, a few survivors scattered around the world. However, most of them are dead. Nagato's parents are also dead. They were killed during the Second Shinobi World War when he was still younger, Madara explained calmly. I see. Naruto paused before closing his book. Uzumaki are related to Senju. This makes Nagato a good candidate to wield the Rinnegan without any drawbacks. What is the deal between Obito and Nagato, then? Obito knows everything, Madara responded. About the plan. Naruto finished. This means not everything else. But Nagato was left in the dark. Yes, that is what is important, Madara stated. How do I fit in this picture then? Obito is an Uchiha and Nagato has the Rinnegan. They should be able to fulfill this plan without any troubles. If Obito is trained by you, then he should know how to manipulate people. Naruto paused for a moment, realizing something. Nagato was not trained by Madara. This means the manipulator between the pair would be Obito. Obito, he said, leaving for Madara to figure out the rest. He is too emotional and I believe he will betray me. I cannot deny that he is smart, but his mental stability makes him dangerous to leave unchecked. There are no problems with Nagato, he can be easily manipulated. Obito has already done that, Madara stated. You've not told me of my role in all this, Naruto said, looking straight at Madara. When looking at the blonde's eyes, Madara could only see curiosity, nothing more. If it was faked, he could have easily deduced it. He was a master manipulator after all. Watch Obito, and keep close ties with Nagato. You are fit for this role. You are not emotional like Obito and have nothing to lose in this world. You have no one, no family, nothing to live for. But Tsuki no Mi gives you a purpose. Madara watched Naruto's body language carefully, but it revealed nothing. Nagato can revive me using the Rinnegan. However, should there be problems, you will have to revive me yourself. Take care of both Nagato and Obito. My eyes must be reserved for my return though. With all the body modifications, Nagato and Obito shouldn't be a problem to you. Naruto absorbed everything silently before speaking. Within the eternal genjutsu I can have both my parents. I can smile in the comfort of my parents. Perhaps I may even get a younger sister. He smiled slightly at the thought. He was really thinking of it. It would be really beautiful. With how famous his father was, he could be the prince of Konoha. Madara allowed the blonde to smile. That smile was by no means a fake. Yes. He then paused for a moment. Even when wielding my eyes, you should be able to access my Sharingan, and all its abilities unlike Obito and Nagato who can only access the Rinnegan. I can use both the Rinnegan and Sharingan. This means that I can access your perfect Susanoo. Interesting. So I'll wield the legendary powers of Uchiha Madara, Naruto stated. So that is what the experiments were for, or perhaps I can a Rinnegan of my own given the modifications. Before Madara could respond, a swirling vortex appeared within the room. He then spoke. Ah, Naruto, this is Obito. Obito, take off your mask so Naruto can see your face. Naruto took out his book, again. Interesting. Both Madara and Obito couldn't tell what he found interesting but neither asked. Flashback end. Hokage's office. Hiruzen stared at Naruto with mild curiosity. Each time the blonde came to see him, he felt like he was seeing a complete stranger, like each time he came, he was new person. Impossible. Yes it was, but he couldn't shake off the feeling. Naruto was many things, some of the things he failed to even define. With lack of definition, he couldn't even hope to begin to understand anything. The feeling he got, what his experience revealed when looking at Naruto, it was that the blonde was a mountain of mystery. Despite being young, the blonde could be so mysterious, such that even times he was left solving a puzzle that toyed with his old, but sharp mind. Over the past days he had discovered little, but much in terms of weight. What he has discovered led him to believe that Naruto knew some of the things that he wasn't supposed to know. However, he still couldn't prove it. Just to be sure, he would continue to keep a close eye on the blonde. It would do him no good if Naruto continued to be mysterious. There was once a time that Naruto had managed to sneak in behind him. That day, he had not sensed anything, not a damn thing. The blonde had walked in behind him, the Sandaime Hokage, god of shinobi, the professor. He had nearly welcomed a heart attack that day, but he had dismissed it as a fluke. However, now he was starting to think that it may not have been a fluke. Judging by the way you are looking at me, I'd be inclined to think that you are trying to read my mind, Naruto stated, sounding a bit amused by the stare of the Sandaime. The old man had been staring at him for more than a minute, looking to be deep in thought. The Sandaime chuckled. Sorry my boy, I was lost in thought, Hiruzen stated with a small smile. I may have been trying to get into your head, he admitted, never losing his smile. Sometimes Naruto came here and acted like a child he was, sometimes they had some good conversations. Today it seemed like one of those days Naruto wasn't going to be laughing hard with him or demanding something. It was going to be those days, they had a good chat. It always felt like he was speaking to someone older. Naruto hid the fact that he wasn't stupid to him. Indifferent to many things. Yes, he was, and that also not hidden from anyone. This troubled him greatly though. He had failed to get the blonde interested in anything and now he had graduated. He would at least make the team selection interesting. You would have only found ramen noodles if you'd dived into my head, Naruto responded calmly, eliciting a chuckle from the Hokage. You may be right about that, Hiruzen smiled. Please take a seat, Hiruzen stated. Naruto had been standing in front of his desk since he walked into his office. Naruto did as told. It would be cool if one could read the mind of another person just by looking at them, huh? The blonde sounded a bit thoughtful. Certainly, the ability would really be useful to have. Hiruzen couldn't deny that, but still, ability like that would be dangerous in the wrong hands. Naruto sighed. Do you always have to be extra cautious in everything? It wasn't the first time he had heard the Sandaime say something like that. Words such as those took out the fun in everything. Hiruzen only smiled, but didn't respond to the question. How do you feel now that you have graduated? If I remember, it was quite a hustle to get you accepted to the academy. Moreover, I had to force you into going. Good and relieved. If I had to spend another year in that prison, I would have committed suicide. The academy isn't that bad, Naruto. If you'd gone there with the right attitude, you would have enjoyed your time there and made some friends. The Sandaime was not pleased with the fact that Naruto had no friends. Yes, he regularly talks with Choji and Shikamaru, but according to Jiraiya and Kakashi, they weren't exactly friends. Naruto shrugged in response. The third Hokage sighed. How about we talk on our way to the ramen stand? I haven't treated you to some ramen in some time and I fear that we may no longer get the chance as time moves forward. Naruto nodded with a smile. Okay, but you have to allow me to eat as many bowls as one want. You always eat as many as you want even if I tell you not to, Hiruzen reminded the blonde with a chuckle. I just can't help myself. Ramen tastes a lot better when someone is treating you, especially when you're the one buying. Naruto said a bit happily. Well, soon you're going to be earning your own money as a shinobi, you'll have to treat me too as I can experience this taste you speak of, the Sandaime stated, ever so smiling warmly as he stood up from his seat. Deal. So, Naruto, what do you hope to achieve as a shinobi? The Sandaime asked as the two left the entrance of the Hokage Tower. They had left his office in some peaceful silence before he had decided to break the silence. Naruto looked a bit thoughtful before responding, I don't really know. However, I do hope that when I see the heart of the shinobi world, I'll find something. Sarutobi nodded and responded. Some make their choices when they are still at the academy. I think you've grown up to think of your own dream. What do you hope to see outside there? I don't hope to see anything, but I wish to know what it is really like to be out there. The teachers at the academy never said it was fun being a shinobi, but they never told us otherwise when we say it is. This has led me to believe there are many things outside the walls, good and bad, Naruto responded calmly, ignoring the blatant glares that were sent his way. It didn't matter if he was with the Sandaime, these fools still glared at him. Although he ignored it and never gave it a thought, he could sense that it didn't please the old man beside him. There were even times when the old would even send a killer intent to scare off the glaring villagers. There are indeed many things outside the walls. People interpret it definitely, but it is not always as people expect it to be, especially for a shinobi. Naruto looked at the Sandame. How do you interpret it, old man? The third Hokage merely smiled, placed his right hand on Naruto's head, ruffling his hair a bit. He responded. I'll tell you when you define what you wish to achieve as a shinobi, how about that? The following day, Academy. The road to ninja was finally starting to look good. They'd finally graduate from this god-forsaken place. No offense to Iruka, but a time came when they really didn't enjoy sitting for the classes the man taught. However, there was little that could be done because of they were just kids, and had little say in anything. Naturally, it was the adults who did all the talking for them. Sometimes even for things that they really didn't like. Parents did think they know what best after all. Despite their barely contained excitement, they didn't fully understand the nature of the shinobi wood. Who could fault them? They were just brats after all. Being a shinobi was not as cool as they really made it out to be, but the brats didn't know that. Iruka never bothered to teach them what was truly outside those walls. The Chunin himself had faced the cold slap and had been grinded by the sharp fangs of the world these kinds so dream of joining. He'd been embarrassed as a shinobi while he was outside the wall of Konoha. He had his fair experience to know that these children were going to realize soon enough that the shinobi world was not as wonderful as thought. Sometimes you could face things that made your tomorrow look bleak, things that made you think twice about returning to the field. Iruka had done it once, and he wasn't going to do it again. Being a shinobi wasn't for him. He understood that quite well. Teaching some skills and knowledge to the little brats was what he could do best. Iruka sighed, watching the students from a secret place so that they couldn't see him. Today he had decided to observe his class for a little while longer before he finally decided to take his time. It was not yet time for class to begin, but they had already filled of course. Naturally, Naruto wasn't in the class. The very thought of the blonde turned his thoughts black and painted a huge frown on his face. When it came to Naruto, Iruka didn't know what to expect. He just hoped that things turned out for the best. Everyone else settled inside the class and the appearance of Naruto was what they waited for. It didn't take long for the blonde to enter the class. Today he was wearing something different. He wore dark black shinobi pants and shoes to match his pants in color. His entire upper body was covered by a long-sleeved black shirt that matched just fine the other pieces below his waist. His hands were covered with white bandages that went south in color. All the other pieces of his attire were black, the bandages stood out in white. The only thing that remained the same was the mask of indifference. Sasuke felt his stomach twist and turn when he saw the blonde enter the class. His hands were both inside his pockets, and he looked like he would rather be somewhere else than this place. That mask of indifference, and attitude, the way he walked, he could read nothing from it. Sometimes the movements of Naruto painted, "I don't care," inside his mind. His cold stare did nothing but to blow the blonde a cool breeze and it plunged out his nerves, making him feel uneasy. A stare contest with the blonde was out of the question. Despite being the brooding and cold-hearted king, he couldn't stare at those eyes for too long without feeling like he was being stared at a superior being. These all made him hate the blonde more. What really stirred his frustrations and fury was the fact that whether he hated the blonde or not, Naruto would not care. The thought raged through his mind and colored murderous pictures of the blonde. Whether someone called it sick or not, he didn't care. As long as it was able to quench his ever-growing desire to murder the blonde, he couldn't complain. Sakura felt Sasuke's eyes staring at Naruto and she looked at him. Look at him, acting all cool and careless, Cha. Her inner thoughts raged, glaring holes on his forehead. It wasn't fair that he had to gain Sasuke's attention. It was enough that she had to compete with the pig on her right-hand side, but competing with that loser, arrogant bastard that cares for nothing because he has nothing was not something she was not willing to allow. Sasuke belonged to her, and her only. What was so interesting about him anyway? Her eyes wandered from head to toe, and she still could not find anything that was special about him. Sure, he had a great hairstyle and wore nice clothes and was kind of cool with his attitude, but it shouldn't be enough to attract Sasuke's attention. It was a bit ironic that Sakura didn't realize that she'd complimented Naruto, and then say there was nothing good about his looks. Sakura watched the blonde like a predator watching its prey. How could he be so like that? If he mistimed his footsteps and fell down on the floor with his annoying face, she wouldn't mind adding to the insult by stepping over him. He was a low-life orphan who had nothing after all. It wouldn't be wrong to use him in the same way she does with the welcome mat at her entrance door at home. Naruto resisted with all his might the urge to roll his eyes, feeling the stare of the flat pink-head girl sitting between Sasuke and Ino on the front row. He could only imagine that kind of filthy thoughts her weak mind might be formulating. A girl such as Sakura was predictable. He could predict what she could be doing the whole day without missing a thing. The only thing that made him look twice at the row the pink-loving girl was sitting at was the blonde Yamanaka girl. At least Ino wasn't that bad. "Hello, Ino," Naruto greeted, the mask of indifference all but a memory. He sat on the desk just aside Ino, facing her, his back facing Iruka's stage. "How do you do today?" Ino narrowed her eyes, trying to contemplate what Naruto was trying to achieve. Her mind just went black when searching for answers. Seeing that he wasn't going away, the Yamanaka responded, "I'm well, Naruto, you?" She spoke in a sweet tone and smile that was by no means forced. It was probably the first time he'd been asked his health by a fellow academy student. Shikamaru had no time for such little things. Smiling, Naruto responded, "I'm well. You look lovely as always. You sure do take care of your body." Some watched as the scene unfolded with mild interest. It was a rare scene to see Naruto conversing with someone other than those in his circle. Moreover, he was also smiling. Usually, he spoke with the mask of indifference planted across his face, his tone also more than willing to match his expression. While Sasuke settled for watching at the corner of his right eye, Sakura gaped openly at what was unfolding beside her. She certainly couldn't begin to fathom it. The loser had just complimented her pig friend and he was chatting to her like they were some sort of furry. She dare not say it. It was unspeakable. "Well, I've to take care of my body if Sasuke-kun is going to take notice of me," the blonde Yamanaka finished in thought. She wasn't going to say it aloud to the blonde lest he make some shitty comment. Naruto leaned a bit closer to her, and gave her a sly smile, eyes pulsating with playfulness, and spoke the words that she so often wished Sasuke would say to her. "Perhaps I should come by at your house sometime and allow you to take care of my body too." Cha. Sakura could no longer it any longer. She turned to her left and looked her Sasuke-kun. "Sasuke-kun, please tell me I'm dreaming." As those words escaped her lips, Sakura entertained the thought of allowing Sasuke to kiss her so she could wake up from this horrible nightmare. Sasuke said nothing. Suddenly feeling the loss of interest, his gaze darted outside the classroom through the window. "Ino." Naruto left the affectionate Chan on purpose. "Is she really okay upstairs? I mean, that isn't normal. You should take her to your father so he can take a look inside her head. You never know, there might a worm feasting on her brain, affecting its functional capabilities." The blonde said, sounding concerned, much to Ino's amusement. Ino laughed, looking straight at Sakura. Naruto had said it knowing that Sakura could hear him, and the look on her face was just priceless. She was sure that even Sasuke's lips twitched for a second. "Good one, Naruto," Ino said after her recovery from her laughter. "What in the world of Kami-sama is happening?" It was the thought that ran amongst those watching the scene in the front row. "Sasuke-kun, are you going to allow him to say something like that about me?" Sakura asked, looking straight at her Uchiha. He was her dream, so she thought would be more than willing to retaliate in her place. However, his reaction, lack of rather, left her speechless. Naruto shook his head slightly, his mask of indifference slipping back to its rightful place. He looked at the pink-haired girl who was close to hitting him. "Are you slow? Did your mother hit you by a hammer while you were still little?" That was the last straw. While Ino could not help but be amused, Sakura nearly punched Naruto on his annoying face. The blonde wasn't in the mood to be hit, and so he had jumped away from the desk to avoid being hit by the girl. His eyes just stared at the seething girl impassively. "Che!" Sakura hissed with a glare that bounced off Naruto. "At least I have a mother." She finished the punch line and folded her hands across her flat chest. "To complement matters," she huffed. Ino winced at those words while Sasuke watched with interest. Some found it funny while others were just indifferent towards it. Who cared if he had no mother? Naturally, Naruto's mask of indifference never slipped off his face. His words were a contradiction to his tone and expression. Ouch, he said. I'm wounded. He looked at Ino, and smiled at her once more. I'm going to sit back and allow Kiba to lick my wounds. When those words finally sunk in, Ino burst out in laughter as she understood what Naruto meant. The blonde said he was wounded. Kiba is often put in the same boat as a dog. A wounded dog licks its wounds, but Naruto was going to sit back and allow Kiba, the dog, to lick his wounds for him. Naruto went his merry way, leaving an amused Ino and a confused Sakura. What did he mean by that? Sakura questioned her rival. She would be downright pissed off if Naruto was making fun of her. She would beat the crap of the loser if it was the case. Ino looked at her friend and rival. She was tempted to ask the same question Naruto asked. Are you slow? However, Sakura wasn't slow, she knew that. But sometimes, well, her mind just seemed to fail her. It was nothing, Ino finally responded. You'd better not be laughing at me, Ino pig. Sakura's confused look turned into a smirk. Have you forgotten that I'm sitting next to Sasuke-kun today? I might even be put in the same team as him. Naturally, Ino retorted and threw fit verbal insults. Hinata smiled watching Naruto slowly make his way to his seat. The blonde was truly strong. She thought that he would have flipped when Sakura made the mother comment. However, there was nothing in him to suggest otherwise. Only a strong person would brush a comment such as the one the pink-head girl made without as much as twitching. If positions had been swapped, she would have run home crying. She wasn't strong enough to take such words. She too had lost her mother at a young age, but she still had her father. However, an insensitive comment like the one Sakura made would have tore through her defenses like a nuclear bomb. Inside his office, the Sandaime felt a pang of guilt coursing through his heart. Although Naruto showed no outward reaction to Sakura's words, he knew for certain that the blonde felt something inside his heart. The guilt inside him made his paperwork look like a mountain to climb. If only he could tell Naruto of his parents, if only that stupid girl knew who his parents were, she wouldn't have said such words. Sometimes Hiruzen wondered how Naruto dealt with it all. If the glaring hatred from the ungrateful villagers was not enough, he had to face such blasphemy in the hands of his fellow academy students. He really couldn't begin to fathom what was inside of Naruto's heart. He hoped that this kind of behavior did not turn Naruto's heart into a deep well of darkness. The future was also bleak. Nothing much with the villagers was changing much. To make matters worse, Naruto wasn't even bothering to get them to think better of him. If anything, he didn't appear to care, and that scared him. He could only hope that Jiraiya would make his move before things became impossible to repair. The dam was already leaking large amounts of water on both sides, and if his loyal student didn't mend things quickly, everything would fall apart and a lot of people would be affected by it all. Naruto took his seat quietly before placing his left hand on the desk. Palm on his left cheek, his book was ready to be released. You really do know how to put on a show, Shikamaru said, turning around to face the blonde. He did not expect the iconic mask Naruto always carried to go away and was not disappointed when it didn't leave his face. This is my last day coming here. I thought I should do something a bit differently and I just couldn't help myself, Naruto responded, tilting his head a little to allow its weight to fall on his hand. I didn't know that you were familiar with Ino. Your recent attitude towards her and every other girl in this class was as the same mask of indifference you always carry. He was definitely not asking a question. He'd merely stated a simple fact that he knew Naruto wasn't going to deny. Things change, Naruto responded with a slight nonchalant shrug of his right shoulder, and she is a little interesting thing, wouldn't you agree? While that flat girl is smart, her mind often takes naps in the wrong time. However, Ino may not be book smart, but her curious personality and perceptiveness makes her an interesting person. Naruto's eyes were still fixed on Shikamaru, and the Nara digested everything and washed it over with a nod. While I have no doubt you are aware of your surroundings more than you let on, I didn't think you would have taken an interest in her because of her flaw. Shikamaru chose to use the emphasized word because that is how Naruto saw the fangirl attitude. I can overlook it if she can act normal for some until Sasuke is brought up, Naruto responded, still not backing out of the staring contest with Shikamaru. When did you become friends with her anyway? You had yet to speak with her since you joined our class. I don't want to believe that you've known her all this time and have just been keeping your relationship a secret. While Shikamaru had no doubt Naruto was able to keep secrets, he was sure Ino was not the one who could keep a friendship and Naruto a secret. Seeing that Shikamaru looked away from him, declaring him winner of their little contest, Naruto took out his book and held it on his right hand while his head was still resting on his left hand. I recently took interest in her. He gave a simple response while his eyes were fixed on his book. Shikamaru nodded in acceptance and rested his head on the desk before speaking. Who do you think you are going to be placed on a team with? I already have a wild guess as to whom one of my teammates will be. You have the same guess, Naruto responded in a tone that clearly drew the whole picture of how he felt about the person who was to be his teammate. Shikamaru didn't need to guess how Naruto felt about it. Kiba chose to walk in as the two were in a pause. He sat between Choji and Shikamaru, his back facing the front of the class, face turned to Naruto who was sitting at the back row. Yo. Naruto never bothered to spare the Inuzuka a glance. He flipped a page before responding. Hello, Kiba. It was a simple response that escaped his lips. Kiba almost frowned at that I don't care attitude, but he was used to it. However, it still didn't stop him from taking a swipe at the blonde. Man, I don't want to be in a team with you. I would rather spend another year here, in the academy, than being tied on a team with a loser like you. You could probably get me killed while taking a nap. Naruto could identify some disdain, and a bit of frustrations in the voice of Kiba. The Inuzuka has never been able to bottle up his emotions, and this made it easy for him to read the boy. Never showing Kiba his left eye, as it was still fixed on his black book, Naruto responded in the same, I don't care, tone he always used. The feeling is mutual, Kiba. There was no snort, no anger or anything. The words just seemed to flow out of his mouth as though it was the most natural thing to say. The lack of anything tangible to read left Kiba's mind raging, but he did nothing rash. I pray to Kami for the poor souls who are going to be held back by a loser like you. The disdain when he mentioned loser never left his voice. Shikamaru sighed, inwardly. Well, at least Naruto doesn't appear to be in the mood to make fun of Kiba, he thought idly. However, if the dog-loving boy continued to throw nonsense like that to Naruto, he was going to get it soon. Well, at least this familiar picture wasn't going to be played in his mind on a daily occurrence after today. I also pray for the souls who will be teamed with you, Kiba. Naruto still refrained from name-calling the boy. He was no longer going to see the smut face of the Inuzuka, he was no longer going to keep the normal ritual in play. Now this kind of response was getting on Kiba's head. It was enough that the blonde had deemed his presence not worth looking up at, but this was just pushing it. What is that book you are always reading? I've never been able to take a good look at it. Kiba said, changing the subject. This has picked up Shikamaru's curiosity. The Nara heir had never seen what was inside the black book, not even once. The only time he was able to take a peek, he found the pages to be empty. However, he knew better. He was certain that he just couldn't see what was written in the book. Still, he never bothered to ask because he knew Naruto was never going to tell him. Naruto's left eye darted around the class. He could no longer feel the presence of Iruka in the class. He returned to his book before he responded. Mind your own breath, Kiba. My book is for my eyes only, and I mean that, seriously. Kiba scoffed and tried to swat the book away from Naruto's hand, but he was never able to touch it. The book disappeared from his hand, and the blonde gripped him by the wrist, tightly and twisted it enough for him to wince in pain. What kept him from throwing his free hand was the eye that stared deep into his soul. Staring at Naruto's eye felt like staring deep into a void of emptiness. Don't do that again, unless you wish Akamaru to carry you to the cold room that reeks of medicine, Naruto warned sharply, in a barely audible tone before letting go of Kiba's hand. The boy massaged his wrist and glared at Naruto. Who knew you could get so emotional over a stupid book? Kiba spoke in a low growl, not the least appreciating the wince caused by Naruto. Naruto didn't respond. Instead, his right hand was placed on the desk, and his face turned towards the window in his left side. The message was loud to Kiba, you are dismissed. This turn of events didn't stray from what Shikamaru had predicted when Kiba tried to take away Naruto's book. If Naruto has held that book all this time and has never allowed anyone to touch, What made Kiba think he would be allowed to touch it? He also had little to doubt that if Kiba tried that again, he would end up in a hospital. Embarrassed and lacking sharp teeth to bite, Kiba walked away towards his seat, eliciting a shake of head from Choji, who had been watching everything from the sidelines. One of these days, those two are going to have it all out, he said, eyeing Shikamaru. The Nara could only nod. At least we won't be there to watch. He certainly found no interest in watching Naruto and Kiba do battle, especially when he knew the outcome of the little battle should it occur. Choji shook his head slightly. Don't you think we will hang out every now and then once we start doing missions? There is a possibility, but I think by that time, Naruto would have grown tired of making fun of Kiba. It was likely that the blonde would keep his distance or even ignore Kiba to abstain from pointless arguments. Naruto knew that both Shikamaru and Choji were aware that he could hear them clearly aside from the laughters and murmurs going on about the class. Both just knew that he wasn't going to comment on anything they said, well, because they hadn't asked him anything. If anything, they were just stating their thoughts aloud. Who was he to stop that train? In the midst of all the hilly bellies, Iruka finally decided to walk into the class after he had taken everything he needed from the office. The Chunin walked carefully towards his desk and sat on the left edge, facing his students. The Chunin watched his students chatter about this and that, never minding his presence. Even these little moments where he had to release a loud shrill to get them to zip their mouths were moments he was certainly going to miss. He would miss these kids, and they were probably the best class he has ever taught. Thinking of the best brought about a ghost frown on his features. Naruto and Shikamaru. His ghostly frown deepened when his eyes found the two. Naruto was staring outside, like always, and Shikamaru looked like he was about to sleep. While he didn't know how Naruto would do if he stopped messing around, he knew that the Nara was a genius. In his tests, he did enough to pass while Naruto only answered questions he thought to be tricky. Iruka sighed, and gathered his thoughts. He smiled at his students. Okay, class, that is enough, he said smoothly, thinking they would listen since they seemed eager to flee from his class. However, he was proved wrong. They didn't listen. Shut up. Ah, that touched the sport, Iruka thought with a gleeful smile spreading across his features. It always brought him a smile when they twitched and winced under the stern glare of his big-headed jutsu, so they called it. Now that I have your attention, the Chunin started, a bit happily as though he was who recently graduated. Today we are going to assign you to different teams, as I told you the last time we had class. Again, the murmurs of excitement erupted. Iruka allowed them to have their moment, only for 3 seconds. Quitta. He got the result he was gunning for. He smiled again at his students. Well, they were no longer his students since they have graduated from the academy. Before I tell you which team you've been assigned to, I'd like to say that I'm very proud of you as your former sensei. I'm glad that you all managed to pass the graduation exam. Now, what waits for you is the shinobi world. I still hope that you'll make me and your soon-to-be senseis proud. A few nods of acceptances and appreciation from the class, and Iruka found more reason to smile. He didn't allow Naruto's blank expression to thief his happiness. No, he had seen it too often to be bothered by it. Though he had thought the blonde was going to at least smile a little given that he was no longer going to be contained in this prison, Iruka would still keep his smile. Iruka coughed a bit to get his class full attention. Now, then Team 1. Naruto found no surprises when Iruka started naming the teams. He just listened quietly as Iruka continued his role, waiting for his name to be called. He was already told who his other teammate will be, and he wasn't disappointed the least by the selection. It was okay from him to be teamed with someone who cared for nothing but himself and his revenge. Team 7. Haruno Sakura, Uchiha Sasuke. Iruka never got to finish reading out the last name because a loud screeching voice interrupted him. Cha. In your face, Ino pig. Sasuke-kun is mine. She was now on her feet, giving the blonde girl a rather nasty victory sign and grin. It was so much that Ino could not even muster a response. Iruka cleared his throat. Thank you, Sakura, for that lovely display. It was by no means lovely, everyone knew that. Now where was I? Oh, as I was saying, the final member of Team 7 is Uzumaki Naruto and your Jonin sensei will be Hatake Kakashi. The unexpected happened. Bloody hell. It was Naruto who suddenly exclaimed, not looking the least pleased with the selection. All eyes fell on him as he began his rant. Bloody hell, he repeated. I have to be stuck with a homo, brooding king, and to add to the insult I get that thing. He looked at Sakura in clear disdain. This isn't fair. I don't even think she is even a girl. Naruto stopped, appeared to be soothing himself. Now that I think of it, she is obsessed with a homo, the blonde mused loudly enough for the silent class to hear him. A light appeared above his head. Ah, I got it. Sakura is man pretending to be a girl. This would explain her sick obsession with the homo, and her lack of rather. I'm positive if we get Hinata to inspect her with her Byakugan, she will find a manly chest. I feel like I am going to be a third wheel. Sasuke-chan is surely going to come out of the closet now, and I will be standing between two lovebirds. Oh, Kami-sama, why must I stand between the love of two soulmates? Naruto finished, a bit dramatically by raising both his hands and looking above the ceiling before bowing a little. There was some pregnant silence for a few moments before most of the class burst out laughing, hard in Sakura's expense. Sakura underdeveloped chest has been always a recurring form of amusement, but this was just taking it to another level. I'm not a man. Sakura tried to defend her honor. Sasuke-kun isn't gay. He likes girls. Without. Kiba added much to the amusement of the class. Can you prove that you're not a man? Can Sasuke prove that he is not gay by kissing Ino? Naruto asked in a rather smooth tone. Iruka felt like glaring at Naruto for his behavior. There was no way Sakura was going to prove anything without making her look insane, and Sasuke wasn't going to kiss Ino. Naruto said it on purpose, knowing that Sakura wouldn't do anything that would make her look mental. Naruto. Iruka started in a calm but chilling tone. Apologize, now, or I'll make you. Naruto gave Iruka an incredulous look, and spoke. Say what? Shikamaru merely shook his head at the response. However, he still found it curious that Iruka was tough, especially to Naruto. He never allowed Naruto to do anything bad or anything that could be interpreted as bad. He was always trying by all means to push Naruto into the right way. This was a special treatment that only the blonde received. Perhaps it was simply because their teacher saw that Naruto had no one to look up to and decided to be a role model for him. It was likely so, but Naruto didn't seem to be someone who appreciated such a thing. He was always dismissive towards most things. He has seen Iruka offer Naruto help in some matters. Though Naruto didn't accept the help, he always gave Iruka an honest, grateful smile. I won't repeat it again, Naruto. The tone never lost its sharpness and the glare never stopped digging holes on Naruto's forehead. Naruto sighed. He wasn't expecting Iruka to have him apologize. I apologize for my behavior, Sakura. It is just that sometimes you act like a man, and I concluded that you may be one. However, that does not excuse me for my insensitive words, and for that I am truly sorry. The words just left his lips like a soft, soothing melody. It would have been a perfect apology if it wasn't for his next words. As you stated, I have no mother, and never had one. I've never had anyone teach me proper manners. I guess I should learn from someone like you who is a prime example of a child who was parented well. I mean, you are smart, and slow at the same time. You have an unhealthy obsession with Sasuke, and I'm positive your mother even helped you build the shrine dedicated to Sasuke in your room. Talk about an insulting apology. Iruka shook his head as Sakura was seething. That is after she had been red-faced when Naruto mentioned something about a shrine. He almost felt pity for the blonde. He knew that Naruto had just insulted Sakura for her behavior. There was nothing to learn from the pink-haired head. Okay, that is enough. Iruka quitted the murmurs that had begun. Team 8. Aburame Shino, Hyuga Hinata and Inuzuka Kiba. Your Jonin sensei will be Yuhi Kurenai. Team 10. Akamichi Choji, Nara Shikamaru and Yamanaka Ino. Your Jonin sensei will be Sarutobi Asuma. Looks like you got trouble. Naruto stated with a small smirk on his face. Don't say. Shikamaru groaned. That girl is surely trouble and she never shuts up. Her mouth is always open. I'm really going to miss some peace time with her around. She is not so bad. Naruto tried to ease off Shikamaru's worries. His words were a contradiction to his previous statement. You just have to know how to deal with her. However, I don't think either you or Choji are up to the task. Well, I can avoid her, Shikamaru responded in thought. However, as he realized, he could never achieve that. At least I don't have it as bad as you. I can get well with Choji, he and I are friends. You on the hand are stuck with Sakura who hates your guts, and it might be said that Sasuke's feelings towards are mutual with Sakura's. At least they'll something in common. Shikamaru's sweat dropped. That was the best response Naruto could give after learning that he was stuck with two teammates who hate him. What was certain was that they weren't going to make things easy for the blonde. You do know that you are going to have a hard time, right? Ino is better than Sakura. Though she is always talking, she isn't as loud as your teammate. Naruto offered a nonchalant shrug in response. He took out his black book again, and flipped a few pages before settling on a particular page. He then responded in words. I can deal with it. An annoying teammate wasn't as bad as the cold glares of the good-for-nothing villagers. Only you can deal with something like that. Shikamaru turned to see Iruka, who seemed to have been talking while they were busy at the back with their small discussion. This will be all from me. Your Jonin senseis will come to fetch you soon. Don't disappoint me. Iruka smiled at the class. He then turned to stare at Naruto and gave him a look that clearly read, especially you, Naruto. With his job done, Iruka left the class to focus on his other duties. First, he had to see the Sandaime Hokage to discuss a few things with the man. He had no complaints with the team selections. However, he was worried about Naruto's team. The blonde, Sasuke, and Sakura just didn't mix together. He could only hope that the Sandaime knows what he is doing. He had much trust in the old man, and so he wasn't going to have any complaints. Hiba moved closer to Naruto, Shikamaru and Choji. Looks like some of us are separated. But I have no complaints. I wouldn't want to be stuck with you two lazy bums, he said, looking between Shikamaru and Choji, then Naruto. It would have been worse if I was teamed up with you. I am glad that I got teamed up with Hinata-chan, and Shino isn't that bad. The feeling is mutual, Hiba, Naruto responded ever so smoothly. I do envy you for the Jonin you've been assigned. You know her? Choji asked with a quirked brow. It wouldn't be a surprise if Naruto knew much about each of their senseis. The blonde was well informed about the happenings of Konoha. Not personally per se, but I have seen her around. I've to say, she's quite the beauty. If she was my age, I would have been madly in love with her, Naruto answered, never looking at the other three teens. His eyes were firmly fixed on his book. It was Shikamaru's turn to raise a curious eyebrow. I've never heard you make such comments about an older woman, and I've always thought you had no interest in love, given that you never make any advances to the girls in this class. They are immature children who understand nothing about love. I have no interest in such kids. I only go women or ladies who have brains and developed assets, Naruto responded, raising his left eye to look at Shikamaru for a moment before looking back at his book. Though I never thought I'd say this, but we may have something in common, Hiba stated with a grin and a sly tone. Somehow, after hearing those words come out of your mouth, I feel the need to change my preferences. Hiba glared before he sighed. There was no point in getting riled up because of this. Can't you go a second without being in? Naruto looked up at Hiba, and then tilted his head. Do you understand what is meant by an ass? Yuhi Kurenai then entered the class. She looked around the class for a moment before nodding inwardly. Before she could call for her team, the blonde brat at the back row winked at her in a subtle way. Nobody saw it as his left eye only turned to her for a second while his face was still facing his book. Kurenai didn't know whether to feel insulted or be angry. In the end, she just shrugged. Teammate, follow me, she said before turning her heels to leave the class. 3 of her students didn't need to be called twice, they quickly followed their sensei. I hope I never see you again, Naruto. Hiba said while he turned to follow the rest of his teammates. The feeling might be mutual, Hiba, Naruto responded quietly, but the Inuzuka heard him clearly. He just didn't say anything in response. Do you have any gum on you? Naruto asked, not particularly to anyone, but Choji responded. No. Naruto nodded and became silent. A minute later, Asuma walked into the class, looking a bit bored. He looked at the remaining lively students before calling out. Team 9, follow me. Shikamaru yawned as he stood up. Well, Naruto, it was fun knowing you. Likewise, Naruto responded, keeping his left eye trained on his book rather than the Nara talking to him. It wasn't like they weren't going to see each other. They would, but after some time as they would all be busy with the teams. Take it easy on your teammates, Naruto, Choji said with a small smile before following Shikamaru from behind. After that, the other Jonins came and went away with their new students. Naruto almost frowned when he felt a familiar presence. Yo, devil. Naruto looked up at Anko with an impassive gaze, but said nothing. He looked back at his book, ignoring the special Jonin. Yo evil, didn't ya hear me? Anko called again, voice raised, hands on her waist, staring expectantly at Naruto. What? The tone was empty and leaking a feeling of impatience. Come on, don't be like that, Anko responded with a grin on her face. She sighed when Naruto ignored her again in favor of his book. Well, at least she tried. Team 3, follow me. After a few more minutes, the class was almost empty except for Team 7. Their Jonin sensei had yet to come fetch them. Sakura was not complaining much, with everyone else gone, except for Naruto. She could enjoy some peace and quietness close to her Sasuke-kun. Any attempt for a conversation with the Uchiha resulted in silence from the Uchiha. He was not listening to anything she was saying. Still, it didn't stop Sakura from telling him about everything she likes and everything she could think. The reality that Sasuke was on another dimension, far beyond her reach, didn't register within her head. After the girl got tired of talking, she looked at Naruto. He was minding his own business. Though he wasn't doing anything to infuriate her, his mere presence was bothering her. Moreover, it has been 2 hours already and her damn sensei had yet to appear. Naruto, don't just sit there. Go look for our sensei. It was by no means a request. She was ordering him to look for their good-for-nothing sensei. Naruto did not even bother to look at the girl. He merely continued reading his book like he'd not heard her issue her command. While he knew that Kakashi had an iconic record of being late, this was not something that he was going to bear with. If this became a daily occurrence once they were introduced, he would make the Jonin respect time. Without her crowd to cheer for her, Sakura could only vent in anger inwardly at Naruto's actions, lack of rather. She could not believe that he would have the guts to ignore her like that. Luckily for Naruto, Kakashi walked into the class before the pink-haired girl could murder him with her glare. Yo! Kakashi greeted with an eye smile. Both Sasuke and Sakura glared at him for making them wait while Naruto didn't react to his presence. Meet me at the rooftop, he said before disappearing in a puff of smoke. 3 minutes later, Kakashi looked at the 3 academy graduates in front of him. Sakura was seated in middle while Naruto sat down on her right and Sasuke on her left side. A single glance at this team told him that he was in hell for a time if they pass the test tomorrow. It was surely not going to be easy to manage all these teens. Hatake, Naruto started, a bit coldly, still looking at his book instead of the famed copy ninja. The coldness of the tone surprised the Jonin. I would appreciate it if you didn't make me wait next time. If you continue behaving like this, I have no problems in doing the same. The question now would be, between you and I, who will be the first to become frustrated? Okay. It was the only response Kakashi could muster at that moment. Okay. He said again. We will begin with the introductions. You will tell me your names, likes, dislikes, and dreams. The Jonin then took out his own book. I will begin first. I'm Hatake Kakashi. I have likes and dislikes. I don't feel like telling you my dreams. He then pointed at Sasuke to begin. My name is Uchiha Sasuke. There are many things that I hate and there aren't a lot of things that I like. Also, I have an ambition that I have no intention of leaving as just a dream. The revival of my clan and to kill a certain man, Sasuke spoke in a dark tone. Ah, I expected as much, Kakashi thought looking at Sasuke. No doubt that the man the boy wanted to kill was his brother. This was all just troublesome. Now, he had to deal with an avenger. Naruto just continued reading his book as though he was not bothered by what Sasuke had just said. Kakashi pointed at Sakura. My name is Haruno Sakura, and I like. Naruto spoke for her while she was in her dreamy world. You like Sasuke, and your hobby is doing Sasuke. Your dream is Sasuke and you hate anyone that does not like Sasuke. Now, can we move on? That isn't what I was going to say. Sakura glared at Naruto. Not to mention, it was rude for him to interrupt her like that. She had a mouth and could speak for herself. If I am wrong, You are free to say what you wanted to say. The words came out smoothly from his mouth. Nothing was forced. Well, my likes are. Kakashi's sweat dropped. She stopped because she realized she was going on the path Naruto had paved for her. He shook his head. Another problem. You are next, he said to Naruto in a mask of boredom. My name is Naruto. My likes, dislikes and hobbies are none of your business, and I don't feel like telling you my dream, Naruto responded smoothly, keeping his yes on his book. Kakashi looked at the blonde for a few seconds before sighing, another problem. However, Naruto gave away nothing that is personal, a good attribute of a shinobi, even though he was hiding this information to his teammates. Alright, you three have different, very different personalities and I think I will work with you well enough, Kakashi stated, after the introductions. Tomorrow we are going to do survival training. This training is going to trim down the numbers because out of the 27 graduates, only 9 are going to become genin. The other 18 will be sent back to the academy. I thought graduating from the academy means that we have become genins. Sakura was defiantly not settled by this revelation. The exam you took was just to pick those who are qualified to become genin, Kakashi responded calmly. Although Sasuke kept his mouth shut, he could see that the news did not settle well with him and Naruto was just another story. So, there is a chance that we will be sent back to the academy, the realization dawned hard on Sakura. Her chance to be with Sasuke was possibly going to be thieved by this injustice. Yes, Kakashi nodded. Tomorrow at the training grounds, I will determine whether you fail or pass. Bring your ninja equipment and meet at 5 a.m. The Jonin watched the graduates carefully before continuing. Well, meeting over. Oh, don't eat breakfast. You are going to throw up if you do. With that, Kakashi disappeared in a puff of smoke. Naruto followed suit without saying a word. Sasuke and Sakura arrived at training ground 7 before it was even 5, but there was no sign of Naruto or Kakashi. The two sat alone as they waited for Kakashi to appear. Sakura didn't really care if Naruto came or not. As long as she was spending some time alone with Sasuke, she was okay with everything. However, she was certainly not pleased with the fact that her sensei had made her wait this long. This was becoming a tendency that she wasn't willing to condone. Well, on the bright side of things, she got to be with Sasuke. Even though he wasn't say anything to her, the close proximity was welcomed at any time of the day. After 3 long hours of waiting, their Jonin sensei finally appeared. Yo, he greeted, giving 2 of his students an eye smile. You are late, Sakura screeched, while Sasuke glared at the man who called himself a Jonin. He even doubted if the man was truly a Jonin. With everything that he's seen of the man, he could speculate that the man was a pseudo Jonin. He didn't look like a Jonin at all and his attitude of being late was starting to annoy him. Where is Naruto? Kakashi tried searching for the blonde but he couldn't find him anywhere around the training ground. He couldn't have stayed home, could he? No, that would be ridiculous. He wouldn't risk failing this test or he would be sent back to the academy. He's yet to come, Sakura responded. Let us just start without him. It isn't like his presence is going to make any difference, the girl was confident that she was better than the blonde. We can't, Kakashi responded coolly. If he doesn't show up within the next hour, I'm going to fail all of you. You can only take this test as Team 7. This isn't a team until Naruto is here. Sasuke gritted his teeth. The hell? He was going to be failed because the blonde was running late. He would murder the blonde in cold blood if he got pushed back to the academy because of him. He would never allow anyone who stood in his way of becoming strong to live. It did not matter who it was. In this case, if he got sent back to the academy, he would search over the village, looking for Naruto. When he does find him, he would ensure that the blonde was dead in the most horrible way possible. Why don't you just look for him? Sasuke asked calmly. If he knew where the blonde lived, he would go by himself to drag the blonde here. But he did not know where his former classmate lived. He was certain that even Sakura didn't know. Let us just wait for him, Kakashi said, looking at the sky. What could Naruto be doing that made him late like this? After 30 minutes of waiting, Naruto finally appeared. He was just walking calmly, without care in the world. When he finally arrived at the group, he received a cold glare from Sasuke, but he ignored it. Naruto, where were you? You could have gotten Sasuke-kun sent back to the academy if you had been late by an extra 30 minutes. Sakura yelled, looking as though she was ready to beat him to death if he didn't give her a satisfying answer. Kakashi knew that Naruto wasn't going to respond to Sakura, and so he spoke. Where were you, Naruto? You were supposed to be here at 5 a.m. with the others, the Jonin questioned in a slight stern tone. You also were not here at 5, Sasuke reminded the Jonin. He too had made them wait for 3 hours. He certainly shouldn't be the one to speak. I never said I was going to here at 5. I said, meet at 5 a.m., Kakashi responded with a shrug of his shoulder. Of course his response earned him a glare from Sasuke. What about you, Naruto? You could have gotten your teammates sent back to the academy. I never agreed that I would come here at 5. You said, meet at 5 inches, and I never said I would be here. You just assumed that I would be here because you said so. Mind you, you never said there would be punishment should I not be here at 5. You were not specific about anything, and I usually do as I please when someone isn't specific with her instructions, Naruto explained lightly. Also, I just didn't feel like waking up at 5, especially when I knew that you would be late. How was he supposed to know that an academy graduate would say something like that? It was like he was just using his words against him. Just get in line with the others so we can begin with this training, Kakashi said, in a dismissive tone. Naruto walked calmly towards his teammates. Kakashi noticed that the blonde had changed his attire, again. He was now wearing dark blue shinobi pants, and a dark red long-sleeved t-shirt, blue shinobi sandals, and the forehead protector was tied around his forehead. It wasn't fully visibly as it was hidden under his hair. Today's test, you have to get these 2 bells from me. The Jonin said, holding out both bells. He then took out a timer. You have to get the bells before 11:30. If you fail, all of you will return to the academy. The one who doesn't get a bell will also be sent to the academy. What? But there are only 2 bells and 3 of us. Sakura couldn't believe that one of them was going to be sent to the academy. However, she calmed down when she realized who she would rather have returned to the academy. If Sasuke or her got the bells, then Naruto would return to the academy. This would mean her and Sasuke, alone, without that annoying blonde. It wasn't so bad. She just had to get a bell before Naruto did. I know, Kakashi said, making the effort to smile a little. You are enjoying this way too much, Kakashi, Naruto thought. He would make sure that the Jonin wasn't smiling at the end of the day. When you come at me, come with the intent to kill. Kakashi said. Begin. The academy graduates disappeared, well, except for Naruto. He stayed behind and looked at Kakashi with that mask of indifference. Would you give me the bells if I asked? Kakashi's sweat dropped. In everyone he has given this test, no one has ever said that to him. No, he responded. Naruto sighed. I guess it can't be helped. With that said, he too disappeared from view. Kakashi also disappeared into the trees and searched for the academy graduates. They were all hidden and were looking around for him. He wasn't exactly hidden. However, for there too, it was a good sign that they had concealed their presence. When he sensed Naruto, he realized that the blonde wasn't paying attention to him, but rather, he was relaxing on a tree branch reading his book. Kakashi sighed. This was going to be troublesome. After 5 minutes or so, Naruto got tired of waiting. He wanted to see how Sasuke would do against Kakashi. But the Uchiha was not attacking the Jonin. It looked like he wanted him to take the first turn. He didn't mind though. He was forced into this situation, so he had no choice but to play. However, he wasn't about to go wild. Nay, that was for some other day, when the situation called for it. Today, he would just mess around with everyone and do some fireworks. He closed his book and searched for Kakashi. He found the man quickly, sitting on a tree branch, reading his book. Let us see you dance, Hatake, Naruto said to himself as he summoned shurikens from a storage seal on his left wrist. He moved swiftly between the trees and got into a good position. He threw a few shurikens at the copy ninja with deadly precision. The Jonin was not surprised to sense the incoming projectiles coming towards him. He simply disappeared from his position in a fast movement to dodge the shurikens. But when he landed on the ground, he found more shurikens coming towards him, fast and close. The first wave was just bait, he realized. He had been baited to dodge the first wave so the real attack could come next. However, for this to work, Naruto had to be able to predict his movements, and he didn't think that it was possible. He used his great speed to dodge the projectiles again and appeared into the clearing, away from the trees. Naruto came in running towards him, in genin speeds. He threw a kunai into the sky before going throw hand seals. The kunai multiplied. They became about hundreds of them. He looked at Naruto to see him giving him that blank smile. "Dance for me, sensei," he said before disappearing into the trees. Then it rained kunais. Kakashi waited until the right moment before he used Kawarimi no Jutsu to replace himself with a log. But as soon as he landed onto a tree branch, he found another wave of kunais rushing towards him. He was forced to take out a kunai of his own and deflect the kunais. When he started to deflect, Naruto landed a distance away from him but hidden from his view. The blonde held a single hand seal. "Boom," he muttered, smiling. "Boom. Shit." Kakashi cursed when the explosion occurred. This was just ridiculous. More than 7 kunais were exploding, and they did not even have explosive tags of them. How was this even possible? You could see explosive tags, but this kunais had no such. He got away. Well, that is to be expected from Sharingan no Kakashi, Naruto muttered, looking at the direction Kakashi had replaced himself to. He didn't waste a second to get to the Jonin. He found the man, no longer holding his book. He wasn't in the trees, but down at the ground looking at him. "There are 2 of them. Perhaps I should play with the clone." The man had quickly made a clone to avoid being caught. "Oi, that was dangerous. You could have hurt someone with that." Kakashi looked at the blonde with a curious eye. He had not shown any taijutsu skills, and he was only showing skills with shurikens and kunais. He was wondering how the blonde would do in taijutsu. According to reports from the academy, his taijutsu was just average. But then again, it could have been for the lack of trying. "But not you. Jonins are really strong, but I thought that would do some damage," Naruto stated calmly. "However, you shouldn't complain. You said to come after you with the intent to kill. My intention when coming at you is to kill you. Who knows, I may actually succeed." He stated so simple, like it was the easiest thing to say. "I have to admit, you nearly got me there, but..." He was cut off when Naruto spoke. Kakashi was a bit irked by it but didn't comment on it. "You should be careful on where you stand," Naruto holding a hand seal. "Shit," Kakashi cursed again, as he realized that the ground he was standing on was glowing. He quickly realized that it was another explosive tag. But this one was big. He did not see himself escaping this one. Then the tag set off. Boom. The explosion tore through the ground, creating a sizable crater on the ground. There was no sign of Kakashi when the debris cleared. Sakura nearly fainted thinking that Naruto had killed their sensei. Sasuke on the other hand was seething. Naruto was doing better than he expected. The blonde was looking better than he did at the academy, and he had yet to even get his hands dirty. Kakashi had not even attacked yet, and he was being put on the defensive. "That was beautiful, nay?" Naruto asked, sitting beside Kakashi on a tree branch, watching the sight he'd set off the explosion. "What?" Kakashi thought, shocked. He didn't sense the blonde coming, nor when he sat beside him. How was it possible? Naruto was still at the other side. How could he be at 2 places at once? Unless, Kage Bunshin. But that didn't explain how he was able to get this close to him. He was a top jonin and an academy graduate shouldn't be able to sneak on him like that. "If it had not been a clone, the explosion would have damaged my legs," Kakashi said, regarding to the memories of the clone that was destroyed. "You sent a clone to play with my clone. Still, I should have seen you do it and I should have been able to sense you." Naruto merely smiled and jumped down from the tree. "I will repeat this again." Kakashi was already in alert. "Be careful where you sit." He was holding another single hand seal as he spoke. The branch Kakashi was sitting on exploded, but the Jonin had already disappeared from the tree. He had learned from last time and he was not gong-o fall for the same trick again. He was a Jonin after all, and an elite Jonin for that matter. What followed then was Kakashi moving from tree after tree. Why? Because each tree branch he touched exploded into bits. The chain of explosions finally stopped and Kakashi was finally able to get a breather. He was a little worn out because of the fact that he'd been running away from explosion after explosion. He had to be at his level best or he would be seriously hurt by the explosions. Those weren't normal explosions. He had seen a fair share of explosive tags, but this ones Naruto was using were new. They were not even visible for him to see. He could only sense them by the buildup of chakra before they set off. That was dangerous, Kakashi said, looking at Naruto who was down on the ground under a tree leaning against its trunk. I would imagine so, Naruto stated, before taking out his book. I placed the traps yesterday. He said knowing that Kakashi would ask the question. Naruto then disappeared from the view of the Jonin. Kakashi didn't wait for something else, he walked away, knowing that someone else would come to attack and Sasuke would do so, probably. Kakashi went on towards Sakura and did a simple genjutsu on her, but to his amazement, the girl fell for it quickly. She was knocked out by what she had seen. With her academic scores, he thought that she would have been able to differentiate between reality and an illusion. But it was not so. Guess the academy scores don't show anything real, the Jonin thought looking at another page of his book. Kakashi sighed as Sasuke appeared before him. It seems that the Uchiha had been waiting for an opening, but since everything that has happened with Naruto, he wasn't going to give any opening to allow the Genins to attack him. Naruto had proved to be capable of getting through his defensives, quite easily. He was silent as a trained assassin. Even now, he couldn't sense the blonde from anywhere. He had disappeared without a trace. The blonde was surely surprising him. Naruto was surprising, that wasn't right. He was dangerous, and he was sure that if Naruto really wanted, he could have been caught in those explosions. Given the time to analyze everything now, he could see that there was no way he could have escaped all those explosions with getting caught in one, especially when he couldn't see them. Naruto must have taken his time to set up the traps. He continued from where he left off. Sakura was well, he didn't have to say it aloud. You are supposed to be better than those two, according to your academic record. Don't disappoint me. I will not, Sasuke responded calmly. Naruto has never beaten me before. And I am not like him, nor like Sakura. Well then, prove it to me, Kakashi said, looking at his book rather than Sasuke. Sasuke went on ahead to attack the Jonin. He surprised the Jonin with his speed and taijutsu. As the same with Naruto, he never got the chance to read his book. He was also surprised when Sasuke knew how to do a Kaden jutsu. But at the end, he was the Jonin and raven-haired was just a fresh academy graduate. Well, he certainly didn't disappoint, Kakashi thought looking at Sasuke. The alarm should have rang by now. Unless I broke it, Naruto finished for him appearing into the clearing. There was no rule set against breaking it, so I didn't break any rule. Ninja do everything to win, and knowing that a bunch of academy graduates cannot defeat a Jonin, I played the ninja way. Naruto left him surprised again. He would have to call it quits soon since he was not going to play around all day. I'll give you another chance. If you fail, I am sending all back to the academy. Fine with me, Naruto said, but he didn't charge towards the Jonin. Naruto did hand seals, and 6 clones puffed into existence. They charged at Kakashi in Genin speeds. The Jonin waited for them to arrive to him. When they did, he dispatched them with ease. But the real Naruto did not attack, he didn't even seem concerned by the fact that his clones were defeated easily. Is that all? Kakashi asked. Naruto went through the same hand seals as Sasuke went through to do the fireball jutsu. He was very much surprised, even so when Naruto did them faster than Sasuke did. It was the blonde had been doing the kind of hand signs for years. When he was ready to use a replacement jutsu to dodge that jutsu, nothing happened. There was just a puff of smoke. Kakashi's sweat dropped. He certainly knew the hand signs, but couldn't execute the jutsu. The blonde had a smile. He seemed to have just done that for his amusement. Can you be at least serious? Yay, Naruto, quit fooling around. Sakura said, agreeing with her sensei. Sasuke had already set himself free and was watching what the blonde was going to do. He had sighed in relief when he realized that Naruto could not do the jutsu he had used earlier. But how the blonde knew the hand signs eluded him. He also did them faster than he did, and that infuriated him. Naruto ignored Sakura. Of course he'd done it to see the priceless look on both Sasuke's and Kakashi's faces. It had been worth it. You are a Jonin. none of us can defeat you. Even if we do team up together, we cannot defeat you. I know that very well, Naruto responded. However, he held a single hand seal and Kakashi felt his body no longer moving. His hands and legs were no longer in his control. After a few moments, Kakashi regained his motion. But the seal didn't disappear. Naruto smiled at him sickly. What is this? Kakashi asked a bit worried. Naruto took out a timer. That is one large explosive tag. It is a new time of seal, the blonde replied. He knew that Kakashi would quickly recognize an explosive tag by first look, adding that last part was important. Kakashi widened his eyes. He started to sweat. If this thing went off, he could die. How? You must have realized that all of the explosions before were not meant to harm you, Naruto started. With each explosion, you were tagged. When my clones attack you, they touched you. Their purpose wasn't to fight you, but to touch to apply the missing pieces of that tag. I only needed to do a few hand seals to attach all the pieces. Kakashi was again left shocked. Okay, can you disarm it? He asked nicely. This was way past his comfort zone. If Naruto made a single mistake, it would not end good for him. And after having witnessed all those explosions set off by Naruto's explosive tags, he knew they held much firepower. And an explosive tag this big would surely turn him to ash. Naruto shook his head. No. Give me the bells first. If not, well, we will bury you soon with other heroes. He spoke in that same tone of indifference, giving away nothing. Kakashi was silent for a few moments. Naruto was not moving. He watched the blonde's expression. It gave away nothing even so with his posture. He could not tell whether he was bluffing or not. But he was sure that this was not a genjutsu and the seal marking him was real. He could not take any chances. You just did not allow brats to play with fire, in this case, explosive tags. Oh, that tag will go off in 3 minutes. I have already set the timer. So when you think remember, that you can be blown into pieces of roasted barbecue soon, Naruto stated, in that tone of indifference. Kakashi did not want to test if Naruto was right or no. He quickly threw the bells at the blonde. Now can you disarm it? His eyes were on the clock. Naruto held a single hand seal, but nothing happened. Oh, I must have forgotten the correct hand seal to deactivate it, he said carelessly. You are joking, right? He had the feeling that Naruto was joking, but the seal was real, and Naruto had been setting off explosives since they started this test. He could not say that the seal was a fake. I might be, Naruto said with a shrug. Oh, I remember, just leak your chakra as much as you can. There is a limit to how much chakra it can contain. Kakashi did that quickly, but what happened next made him freeze. The seal started to glow dangerously, and the mean realized he had been tricked. The seal had sucked his chakra when he was releasing it, and while doing it, gave the explosive tag more power. Naruto pointed at the timer, and then stared at both Sasuke and Sakura who were looking at him in shock. If Kakashi-sensei dies, this was an accident. If you say otherwise, I will kill you both. He spoke in a cold tone that sent chills down the two. Sakura nodded vigorously. Kakashi glared at Naruto. What are you doing, Naruto? He demanded. Naruto did not respond for a moment. Bye-bye. Boom. The ground Kakashi was standing on exploded. Naruto was rolling on the ground laughing his off seeing the expressions of both Sakura and Sasuke's face. When the debris cleared, Kakashi was fine, but he looked rather shocked. You expressions are hilarious. I bet the Sandaime nearly had a heart attack watching this, Naruto said after calming down. Again, this was certainly worth the time and effort. That was not funny, Naruto. Sakura yelled, but she sighed in relief. She had thought he was going to actually get their sensei killed. But it turns out, he was just bluff. Kakashi recalled what he had seen over the previous days from Naruto. He shook his head. If he makes it through this year, he would thank Kami. There was no way he could tell the blonde was only bluffing. The seal was real, that he was sure of. He was sure that the Sandaime was watching about this. Only a sadist would do something like this. Did you really have to go that far? Naruto shrugged, taking off his book. You would think so. How do I explain this? Well, forget everything I said because I lied. There was no explosive tag to begin with. Single quote, single quote, dot, 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 single quote, single quote. Huh. Surprisingly, it was Sasuke who spoke. The Uchiha was really surprised. Naruto had put up a really good act. He thought for a second that there was an explosive tag that had marked Kakashi. What do you mean? What was that seal then? That was just a seal to restrict your movements and absorb your chakra should you attempt to use it, Naruto explained, looking at his book. You must have noticed that the time the seal activated, it restricted your movements. That was the plan. But it did not work as planned. So I lied to get you to give me the bells. And it worked out perfectly. Single quote, dot, 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 single quote, single quote. Unbelievable, Kakashi uttered. I can't believe I fell for that. Don't be too mad at yourself. I had predicted that the seal would not work out. So I thought of a quick way to get out of it, yesterday. He flipped a page. Now what is left is the conclusion. It will go as predicted. He closed his book. Scary, Kakashi thought. So you set up traps all over this place yesterday and predicted how things will turn out. It appears that way, Naruto said. So what will you do with the bells? I don't know. Now let us see, Naruto responded. Before we started, you said the objective was to get the bells, and she that does not get the bell will be sent back to the academy. If that is right, then I only pass the test and both Sasuke and Sakura fail. But that is not the case. Shinobi must be able to see underneath the underneath. Then, looking at this, one would know that a genin cell is comprised of 3 genin and a jonin. Konoha preaches teamwork, and a team cannot be a team with only 2 genins. You would never have put us in a team together if you were going to fail one of us. It is either we all pass or fail, regardless of what you said when we began. Ah, Kakashi did not know how to respond. Those were a lot of words. Sakura mumbled, but she was surprised that Naruto could say those kinds of words. He always failed academy tests after all. This calls an end for this chapter, Naruto said, throwing both bells to the jonin. You give the same test to each team you get and they fail. The true objective of this test is teamwork. I have watched you give the test before, Naruto said to a surprised Kakashi. It does not matter if we get the bells or not. What matters is working together as a team. I did not bother to try to work with those 2 because Sakura would not have listened to since she is too obsessed with Sasuke. The same can be said with the Uchiha. He thinks too highly of himself. He would not have accepted help unless he was going to die. In the spirit of teamwork, I got the bells, you can give them to them. You can just say I got the bells for them since I was positive they would not get them. So for the team, I sacrificed myself. I think this passes the team and I guess now we can call ourselves genins. I do wonder what the third is thinking putting such incomparable team together. Naruto turned around to leave. Well, that is it for the day for me. He was gone after that. What just happened? Sakura asked, looking bewildered. Sasuke was also at a loss of words. He could not explain what had just happened, but what made him excited was the fact that Naruto had just said they passed the test. While it didn't please him that Naruto is the one who got them, he was happy that he had passed. He could have also believed it, especially since the blonde had been playing with explosions with Kakashi. He could not fault the jonin for giving away the bells. Naruto had just shown him something. It wasn't power alone that won the battle, but the ability to think beyond your opponent, a few surprises and overall being cunning. He did not know how it would have happened if Kakashi had been seriously from the beginning. But it was certain that Kakashi would not have left the battlefield unscratched, despite the clear difference in power. If anything he learned today, it was that Naruto had a dangerous mind and allowing him time to think and touch you was dangerous. He would do well to remember it well. Keep your distance and never fight the blonde at his own ground of choice, otherwise it was a victory in favor of the blonde. As much as he loathed admitting it, the blonde was good. But on the bright side, the blonde would not hold him back. So we pass? Sasuke asked, looking at the jonin with a straight face. I guess you do. Naruto did sacrifice himself for you too. And he is right, the objective of this test was teamwork. Kakashi said, leaving his thoughts. Meet me tomorrow at 8 a.m. so we can begin with the missions. The jonin disappeared in a puff of smoke. Sasuke turned around to leave. He had much work to do. He now realized the difference between him and a jonin. He had much ground to cover before he could reach his traitorous brother's level. He had actually thought that he had become strong, but today he'd realized the truth, he was nowhere near his brother's level. Sasuke-kun. Sakura called, but she was blissfully ignored. Hokage office. Naruto had not been on the mark, the Sandaime had not been watching the test as he was busy with something. Once all the Jonins had arrived, the third requested all of them give their reports. As expected, the children of the clan heads all passed. It was to be expected as they are trained outside the academy since their clans have the resources. The whole office was in silence after Kakashi explained what had happened during his test. Well, that was only for a few moments, until Anko burst out laughing. Ha 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 ha. The woman laughed loudly. I knew he was evil. She finally calmed down and spoke. I knew he was the devil. But you have to admit it. The kid has a frightening mind. It sorts of reminds me of Orochimaru. I wonder what sort of horrors they would cause if they teamed up together, she finished in thought. Comparing him with Orochimaru is a bit too much. But I cannot deny that he is quite cunning and manipulative, Kakashi responded. From what I have seen, he has no problem in using half-truths as well emotions to sell the act. Anko nodded. Yes, and he does it with a straight face. You don't even know if he is lying or not. And in battle, don't play around with him or you will regret it. It is better to him down quickly before he analyzes your fighting style. If you give him an opening, you will regret it. How do you know so much? And we have to remember that he just graduated from the academy. Kakashi was also taking him lightly because of that. Asuma sounded skeptical about the whole thing. If you don't believe me, play with him yourself. Perhaps I will, Asuma said, before shrugging his head. You shouldn't underestimate young Naruto, Asuma, the Sandaime stated, in a tone bordering seriousness. He may not appear so, but he isn't stupid. He is very capable for someone so young. He was now sure that Naruto knew that the Kyuubi was sealed inside of him. This posed some problems, but he would have to do damage control soon. Whatever you say, Pops, Asuma responded with a shrug, making the Sandaime sigh. The rest of you are dismissed. Kakashi stay behind, the Sandaime stated. The other Jonins left the office. After that had happened, Jiraiya appeared. Did you see everything? Jiraiya nodded. I swear that kid is good. He is the kind who you catch in bed with your wife, and still manage to convince you that nothing happened. They were just playing a game of hide and seek while, the Sannin stated. We have to be careful around him. If we handle things with him wrongly, there will be many problems. The Sandaime nodded. It will be better not to do anything that makes him feel unwelcomed and feel like he is being watched every time. And we have to refrain from asking him too many questions that will make him feel like he is being interrogated. Kakashi and Jiraiya nodded. The latter patted the former on his shoulder. I also could have fallen for that. I had no idea he was bluffing. I believe he knows about his burden, the Sandaime stated. He was sure that he could not know of his parentage. He'd erased all evidence before Naruto could even talk. With the Kyuubi, someone could have said something that made him suspicious, and with how the villagers treated him, it was only a matter of time. We will have to talk to him about it, sensei, Jiraiya stated, looking at his former sensei with a serious expression on his face. The Sandaime nodded. Well, I guess I will go now, Kakashi said before disappearing in a puff of smoke. I just hope that things don't blow up on our faces, if we handle things wrongly, Jiraiya muttered. The Sandaime merely smiled at his last faithful student. Have some confidence in Naruto-kun, Jiraiya. He is Minato's son after all. Whatever has happened, Konoha will always be his home. We just have to ensure that he develops some bonds. I can't do that now, Jiraiya said, but flinched when his sensei gave him that disappointed look. He knew that the old man wanted him to develop a bond with Naruto. Look, he has Kakashi now. It is better for Kakashi to develop a bond with him since he is his sensei. And it is dangerous for me to be close to him right now. When he makes Chunin, I will take him as my apprentice. I hope you don't disappoint Jiraiya. Minato made you his godfather after all, the Sandaime stated. I have done all that I could to ensure that he has a normal childhood. Kurenai and Anko. Is it a right thing to call Naruto the devil? I mean, isn't it enough he is called a monster because of his burden? Kurenai asked as she and Anko made their way towards the Dango shop. These losers call him a demon and monster because of the Kyuubi. But I call him the devil because he is the devil. I swear to you that kid is evil, Anko stated while she nodded at herself. It was no surprise to Kurenai that Anko could say Kyuubi out in the streets like this, even though the Sandame forbade it. What did he do to make you call him the devil? Kurenai asked with a curious tone. If anyone could be called the devil, it was Anko. She had seen the woman torture many people just for her amusement. So she was curious how her of all people could say that much about a 13-year-old boy. I don't want to talk about it, Anko said quickly. Come on, Anko. Fine. Anko relented. I will tell you about this once when I first met him, she stated. Flashback. Anko was running through the forest of death going into a direction her snakes had spotted someone. When she arrived at the place she found him, Naruto, sitting calmly under a tree with a scroll in front of him and a small black book opened right beside the scroll. She smiled thinking she was going to have some fun with him. Well, what do we have here? She asked grinning like a mad woman. Who are you and what are you doing here? Of course she knew exactly who he was. She just wanted to see how he would respond. Naruto looked up to her and gave her a tiny nervous smile. Uzumaki Naruto, he said in a soft tone, sounding a little broken. This place is where other monsters live. Since the villagers call me a monster, I thought I should spend my time here. Monsters should live other monsters, right? His eyes were now closed, but he kept the tiny nervous smile. Anko clenched her fists. She had also been subjected to abuse from the villagers because of her past with Orochimaru. But this, she knew that the villagers hated him for the Kyuubi. But she didn't think that it was this bad. He now believed that he was a monster. She put on a brave face. So, just because they call you a monster, you will believe that you are a monster. Well, I have no family. No one even knows what happened. I asked myself, how can that be possible? Even if my parents did die when that demon fox, Anko was quick to notice that the last words were said with so much venom that made her flinch. If only he knew that the Biju was inside of him, someone had to know something. There is a no way person can live in this village and be invincible to everyone. It is just impossible. So I thought that has to be a lie that they died when that bastard fox attacked Konoha. What is that you believe? Naruto closed his small book and it disappeared from his hands. He looked back at Anko, still with that tiny nervous smile. My parents never lived in this village. They just came here and threw me at the orphanage because they didn't want me, or it is that I may truly be a child of a monster. Personally I would rather chose being a monster than thinking that my parents rejected me. At least with the monsters I can comfort myself, knowing that each monster in this forest is my family. Anko was silent for a few moments before she decided to get the hell out of here. Okay. Well, don't stay here for too long. It can be dangerous here. It is not like if I rush back to the village I will find anyone waiting for me. I am just a lonely orphan after all. If I die here, I will at least die in peace knowing that I died at home. And no one will miss me on the other side. They will probably celebrate my meaningless death, Naruto responded in a broken tone, while he brought his knees towards chest and wrapped his hands around them, as if for comfort. Anko clenched her fists. Okay. She said before she disappeared. Well, that went than expected, Naruto thought, smiling with his head buried between his knees. He stayed there knowing that Anko would return. She did return. After 3 hours. You are still here? She asked, walking towards him. Naruto looked up to Anko. He was still in that bundled position since she left. He gave her a small smile and nodded. Anko sighed. She cursed herself for this. Come on. I will go buy you some dango. I know it makes me feel better when I am down. Naruto looked at her for a few moments, as if trying to find out what her motives were. Okay. It was a weak reply. Flashback end. What happened then? Kurenai asked, feeling some pity for the blonde. It must have been really hard for him to actually start believing that he was a monster, and to think that the creepy beasts in the forest of death were his family. I took him out for some dango and then we talked for a while. It got late and I took him back to my place since he had fallen asleep and I didn't know where he stayed. Anko paused for a moment. I didn't know that I had brought the devil into my house. Since I was tired myself, I tucked him to bed in my spare room and went to bed. But he woke me up in the middle of the night. I realized something was wrong though. I was held down on the floor with some markings beneath me formed like a spider web. To add to that, I was the devil. Kurenai exclaimed shocked. He didn't rape you, did he? Because if he did, I swear to God I will go right now and rip him to pieces. Anko chuckled, a bit bitterly. No, he didn't. She said. But he is a pervert and examined each part of my body. He said I wouldn't mind since, well, my record and that Kunoichi sometimes slept with enemies to get intel. After that, he said he was sorry because he was going to experiment on me. I nearly wet myself thinking it was Orochimaru all over again. What did he do, Anko? Kurenai demanded, holding Anko's hand firmly. He forced me to activate the cursed seal and put me through so much pain that I cried and begged him to stop, Kurenai, Anko said. Kurenai was shocked, and bordering to the point of exploding in anger. To say that Anko was begging and crying was like saying the Sandaime had been caught making out with Danzo. Anko was the bravest person she knew in all of Konoha. To get her to the point of breaking down and begging must have been something else. I lost consciousness after that. When I came to, he said I had been out for about an hour. He forced me use activate the cursed seal again. He told me that I almost died and could have died if it went for my strong will. Anko again chuckled bitterly. I was afraid thinking I was going to die. This boy had manipulated me into pitying him and now he was probably going to kill me. What pained me more was that the look on his eyes told me that if I died, he would only be sad that his experiment had failed. He broke through your defenses, using the truth. I would have also pitied him if I was put in the same situation. But why did you not report this to the Sandaime? We cannot let him get away with this. Kurenai spoke like she was going to march back to the Sandaime's office and demand Naruto's execution. Because he didn't want to kill me and had done everything to ensure that I would survive. When I had regained my strength, he explained everything to me. Anko paused for a moment before smiling. Well, the rest if for another day, and in the end it turned out that he just wanted to help me out. What? He helped me out, Anko stated. Then if he was helping you out, why did he not tell you that from the beginning? Why manipulate you like that and make you think that he was just using you like a genie, a pig? Kurenai was really confused now. She could not understand how Anko could say that he was helping her out after all that he had done. Evil, Anko said. That is why I said he was the devil. The kid made me feel sorry for him enough to buy him food and bring him back to my place. I could have chosen to live with him after that. But during the night, he strips me and draws seals on me and I did not feel a thing. He allowed me to think I was going to die. Only the devil can do that. Kurenai nodded. Then what about all that he said? Oh, he said he used to think like that when he was little, Anko responded calmly. But even if he was helping you, don't tell me you allowed him to get away with it, Kurenai stated. She could not allow something like that to go without punishment. Well, he apologized for making me through it all. I think he was lying though. Nonetheless, he gave his body and told me to do whatever I wanted with it. He told me it was okay if I even cut off his legs. I did not waste much time with having my snakes poison me. I played with him for a full day, until I finally stopped when he pretended to be dead. He had faked even his pulse. She did need feel it when she tried to see if he was really dead. But he promised to kill me if I told anyone about it. He showed you that he was a psychopath and knew Fuinjutsu. I would understand why he would that hidden. Who would want a Jinchuriki who is a psychopath and knows Fuinjutsu? Kurenai stated. With Fuinjutsu, he could unseal the Kyuubi and being a psychopath pushed all the wrong buttons. I will keep this to myself also. But are you sure he would have killed you if you told someone? Nah, he was just joking. He likes doing it. Once you get used to him, he does not do anything bad, except for a few harmless jokes. He is actually quite funny, she smiled before continuing. However, if you are an interesting specimen, don't allow him to get closer to you. No matter how believable he sounds, don't believe anything that comes out of his mouth. You know that they say the Byakugan can see everything. Well, you can put that kid in its path and it won't see a thing. Not a damn thing. You know, today while I was going to fetch my team, he winked at me and mouthed I was hot, Kurenai stated calmly. She was feeling happy that she didn't respond to that. If he wasn't just a kid, I would have blushed. I mean, you do have to admit that he is cute. He is indeed cute. I sometimes wish he was a little older, Anko admitted. Speak of the devil, Kurenai said as the two were passing through Ichiraku Ramen. The devil being spoken of was chatting peacefully with a yame. Look at him, Anko said, posture unreadale. He is sitting there like this brat who has no interest in anything. But deep inside, he is the devil searching for prey. No doubt that poor girl is already hooked under his spell. Surprisingly, Kurenai nodded. Let's go say hi, Anko said. She was already going before Kurenai could say anything. Yo. Kurenai was quick to notice that she didn't call him devil and greeted him in a friendlier tone. When Naruto turned around, she realized what Anko meant by brat who has no interest in anything. Hello Anko, Kurenai-san, the blonde greeted, smiling. No wonder Anko fell for him, Kurenai thought looking at the blonde, his sweet smile, his eyes. She could not tell if his look was a mask or not. Hi, Naruto, she greeted back. Naruto, I am going back to the kitchen, Ayame said. I will take my leave, I was done anyway, Naruto said. I will see you later. Okay. Ayame disappeared towards the kitchen. So, where are you two lovely ladies headed to? Naruto asked quietly. Dango shop and you are buying, Anko responded as they left the ramen shop. Kakashi was just telling us that you pulled another one from your book, she stated, grinning. Yay, that was a good one, and it was worth it. But I won't be able to do it again. Naruto said, knowing the same trick wouldn't work on Kakashi. That reminds me, your order for those special kunai is back, Anko stated. Can you get it for me? I am running a little low on funds. I will pay you back after I start doing missions, Naruto said. Anko looked at the blonde for a few moments before shrugging. No, she said. That is cold, Anko, Naruto said, in a tone revealed nothing of his emotions. Sell your explosive tags if you are broke, Anko said. She wasn't going to allow him to bleed her dry. Especially when he could make money for himself without much troubles. Naruto sighed. Did you pass your team? He asked looking at Kurenai. He knew that Anko would have failed her team. It was always like that with her. Yes, they passed, Kurenai responded. Cool, Naruto said. I had expected that the clan heirs would all pass since Kakashi had said only 9 had to make genin. Have you ever taken a team before, Kurenai-san? No, Kurenai responded, shaking her head. New to the job. It must be a daunting task given that all your genin's lives are your responsibility. You have to make sure that they are trained and prepared for missions. If you fail as a jonin, then your genin fail and it may result in their deaths. It must be some weight to bear all that, Naruto stated, looking ahead the road. Anko suppressed the urge to roll her eyes knowing that he didn't care about it. It is, but I'll manage. Naruto nodded. It takes believing in yourself to succeed. Doubting your abilities leads to hesitation, and ultimately failure. Only those who have the courage and confidence can make good senseis. Kurenai narrowed her eyes at the blonde. He sounded like he was older and he had experienced everything. But considering everything, it could all just be an act. But Anko did say that he was not a bad person once you got to know him. Then he looked at her with a smile. I see Anko has been talking, he muttered, before looking ahead. Anko, I have told you many times not to talk. Kurenai-san will never look at me the same again. But I guess it is for the best. You are not even trying to deny anything. You are a genjutsu master. Everything is not as it appears. You know this too well. The rest you will figure out yourself, Naruto responded, calmly. Well, ladies, I have to hit the hot springs, my body is a little worn out. Hey, what about paying for my dango? And really, you are gone go to the hot springs without me. Buy me dango first. No, I've changed my mind since you talk too much. You also didn't tell Kurenai the entire truth. You no doubt some things that didn't happen just to make me look bad, Naruto stated shaking his head. Buy me my supplies from Hisaragi and I will give you all my explosive tags, as well as those other special kunais. Deal and you will make me more tags when I need them. Okay. Naruto disappeared. How many explosive tags does he have? Kurenai asked, wondering why Anko jumped to take the offer. Let us just say that there are enough to destroy this village, completely and leave nothing. He made them while he was bored, and does not really use them in battle. But during the test, he only used explosives. He was probably just giving them a test run, or it was because he just wanted to screw with Kakashi like he did. But I could be wrong. Kurenai nodded. You didn't call him devil in front of that girl. That girl was a Yame. She found it interesting that Anko could call Naruto the devil even in front of the Hokage and yet couldn't do that in front of a Yame. There had to be something there. She had no doubt that Anko would not miss an opportunity to mess with Naruto, but why didn't she with that girl? Anko's whole demeanor changed completely, for a few seconds that is. Naruto is rather fond of her, that was all she said in response. Ramen stand. Ayame was busy doing the dishes when something happened. Someone's body froze when a body pressed against her back and held her mouth tightly, stopping her from screaming. She calmed down when she recognized that it was Naruto's hand that was covering her mouth. Feeling tension leave her body, Naruto allowed her to go. Ayame turned around. Don't scare. She trailed off when Naruto put his finger on her lips. Don't make noise. I don't want your father to know I'm back here, Naruto whispered. He could still feel that the old man was busy with customers back at the counter. What's going on? Ayame asked in a whisper, wondering why Naruto was doing all these. She knew that her father wouldn't be mad if he saw Naruto in here. He had been here on a few occasions helping her out and even helped when she couldn't. We are going to sneak out of here. Naruto gave Ayame a grin and a copy of Ayame puffed into existence. Ayame smiled, feeling a bit excited by the thought of running away with Naruto. Where are we going? To the hot springs, Naruto responded before he placed his right hand on Ayame's right shoulder. Markings began to spread around her body, and she became invisible. Naruto applied the same seal to himself. Where did you go? Ayame asked once Naruto disappeared from her view. Right here. Ayame nearly jumped up in surprise. Come on, let us go. Naruto got hold of Ayame's right hand, dragging her out of the kitchen. When they made it to the front, they found her father busy chatting with his customers. Naruto kept Ayame behind him until they left the small stand. But just when they exited, their invisibility became undone. The old man was quick to notice them as he had seen the entrance move. Ayame, where do you think you are going? He asked, looking directly into her eyes. Well, Ayame scratched the back of her head, laughing nervously as she had been caught. Naruto grabbed her right hand again. Come on, let's run away before he says anything else. He was already dragging her away when he spoke. Ayame simply allowed herself to be dragged by the blonde with a smile on her face. Chuki merely shook his head. What are you doing, Naruto? Sakura yelled, looking at the blonde who was having fun with swimming at the water stream, just beside their training ground. The blonde seemed to be having some fun with the water as he did a dive after dive. He disappeared before reappearing again. Naruto did not stop, enjoying himself in the water. He pretended like he didn't hear her, but after a few moments, he stopped and floated within the water before looking at the girl, and then the Uchiha. If Broody-sama went to strip, you would no doubt jump into the water without second thought. The girl stopped glaring down at him as she took thought of seeing waves hitting her beloved Sasuke-kun again and again. She blushed heavily. Well, if Sasuke-kun were to enter, I would. But you are not him. Put on your shirt. You are freaking out the water. Naruto looked at the girl for a moment. I doubt you would expose yourself getting into the water knowing that your manly parts will be revealed. But on the bright side, Broody-sama will finally get a peek at your body. Cha. Sakura was thinking of rushing over to the blonde to pummel him. But he was in the water. She would get wet if she got there. Sasuke-kun, will you beat up Naruto for me? She asked in a sweet tone that would surely convince anyone but not Sasuke. No, Sasuke responded calmly before looking back at Naruto. Hey, Naruto, since it's obvious that Kakashi-sensei is going to take his time to get here, why don't you come here so we can spar? I need a punching bag. Kakashi-sensei will be here soon, you just have to call him. Naruto responded calmly as he got out of the water. In this form, he held a single hand seal, and nothing happened. But after a minute, Kakashi appeared in a puff of smoke. The Jonin looked like he had been shocked, literally. Yo, he greeted weakly. But then he glared at Naruto. My book, my precious book. You destroyed it. Naruto looked like he had not heard the Jonin, forcing Kakashi to raise his voice. Naruto. Huh. Naruto gave Kakashi a blank look. You said something, sensei. I was lost in my thoughts. Kakashi's sweat dropped. Classic, he thought. Why did you do that? And when did you mark it? The Jonin questioned. If Naruto had made his book shock him, then he had to have placed a seal on it. Yesterday. I had thought of putting on hostage and force you to pass us, but that would have been lame. Only a nut job would fall for such a thing. Naruto explained. Kakashi shook his head. He probably would have passed them if Naruto had done something, but then he would be a nut job as Naruto puts it. When did you mark? He wanted a precise answer. And why did I not see the mark? You did not see it because I can't be seen unless activated. But if a Sharingan or the Byakugan had seen through it, it would have seen the mark. And it never disappears until used, Naruto explained, lightly. Kakashi started to move uncomfortable. He would have to get a Hyuga scan his body to see if there are seals on his body. He did not want something like that on him. Perhaps Anko was right when she said to never allow the blonde to get closer to you, or allow him to touch you more than 5 times. He could see why it was dangerous. Have you marked anyone with that kind of seal, in our team? Naruto smiled. Of course not. That would immoral of me to do something like that to my teammates. Such techniques are reserved for enemies, he explained, in a tone that was just unreadable. How do we even know you are not lying? Sakura questioned. He had proven to be a good liar and he could be lying about not marking them. But she was sure that he had never touched her before. You don't know, Naruto responded, his smile fading away. If you don't believe me then, you will live in fear thinking I am just going to snap my fingers and you will explode into a shower of blood. Well, that will be amusing for me to watch. I will find a good Hyuga and have him check us, Kakashi said, not wanting to take any chances. Naruto sighed. Perhaps this is not the best start for this team. I cannot have you second guessing everything I say. Now I am going to be very honest with you, and I will not repeat anything that I will say. He paused for a moment. He disappeared into the forest and a few seconds later, he returned fully dressed. He was also holding a copy of The Flirting Paradise. This is your real book, Kakashi-sensei. I swapped it yesterday since I had plenty of chances. The copy I gave you was mine and I had applied the seal on it. I cannot mark anyone with an explosive tag. It is impossible. You must have noticed that even yesterday, I used tags on kunais and those placed in different locations. This has to show you that I cannot magically create an explosive tag with just a touch. Naruto paused, shaking his head. Really, if I could do it, it would have been awesome. I mean, you only had to touch your opponent once, and zap. You guys really need to use your heads sometimes. Kakashi smiled. That is the first time I hear you tell the truth without mixing other things, the Jonin stated, calmly. The blonde merely shrugged in response before throwing the Flirting Paradise back to Kakashi. How can you tell he was telling the truth? Sakura questioned, looking at her sensei. From what she saw, everything about him was the same as he was lying through his teeth. Kakashi shrugged. I didn't know you read this book, he said, looking at the blonde. He had only seen the blonde reading his little black book. And Ika Ika Paradise was not for kids, it was a book for adults. But then again, when you became a shinobi, you became an adult. I was bored and took a peek thinking it might be interesting. Well, I did not like it and I didn't hate it, Naruto responded calmly. He could read better things than those kinds of books. What he had discovered was that most of the people who read the book were perverts. Kakashi seemed a little disappointed, but nodded nonetheless. Gather around so we can have our first team talk as an official team, the Jonin stated, gathering his students in front of him. He looked at each of them, judging their expressions. Sasuke looked as always, while Sakura. Well, was Sakura. Naruto had gone back to his look of indifference. What are we going to talk about, Kakashi-sensei? I thought we were going to do a mission. Sakura questioned, looking straight the Jonin. Sasuke nodded at this. Yesterday, you did say that we would start a mission after the test. But there was no mission. I had thought that you would get us a mission today. Kakashi sighed. Containing the Uchiha was going to be a little hard, but he would have to do it. We will do the mission after this. Something come up that I had to discuss with the Sandaime and none of the other Jonins had taken their students on for missions. Probably I had come up, Naruto thought. Certainly, He was sure that they talked about him yesterday, and it was just a matter of time before the Sandaime called for him. Well, he would have to be careful, especially knowing that Jiraiya would also be there. He did not wish to end up saying this that could be used against him. But he had been playing this game for a while now, there was not much to worry about. So, why are we still here? Again, Kakashi sighed. I never got to explain everything to you yesterday after your genin test. I guess I should talk to you now before we even start doing missions. It would not be good if you starting going to missions without this lesson. The Jonin looked at each of his student. What is the importance of teamwork? He asked. I think. As expected, Haruno Sakura responded to the question. Naruto almost laughed when she started talking. The girl had much knowledge from reading books, but she could not apply it in her life. It was amusing. Answering questions like this did not cement your survival in the shinobi world. But the girl thought being book smart would get her anywhere. Pitiful. The only rule that applied to her was Sasuke-kun. If the Uchiha was agreeing with anything, she was also going to agree with it. If he showed that he hated something or someone, she was also going to follow his example. Sasuke was what mattered to her. She would probably lose her sanity if the Uchiha just dropped dead. It certainly would be amusing for him to watch her break if the Uchiha died. However, her attitude would probably get her killed before anything else. The Uchiha was not going to allow himself to be killed easily. He had something to live for after all. It seemed that her response was accurate. Kakashi nodded to her with a small smile. Good response, Sakura. Yap, he liked her answer. You see, Konoha values teamwork more than anything. We always teach our shinobi the importance of teamwork. You may be taught in the academy that the mission is important than anything, correct? That is given. The mission is to come before anything else. A simple failure could ruin the village's image. This is why each mission is important and it must be done before anything else, Sakura responded, again. She was merely reciting all those words she had banked over her academy years. Well, what do you know? Her big head served a purpose after all. The rule says that the mission comes before anything. But tell me, Sakura, if you had a choice of completing the mission and saving Sasuke, what would you do? The Jonin questioned. And remember, the mission comes before anything, and if you decide to help Sasuke, you will fail the mission. Sakura didn't know how she was going to answer that one. She knew that it was important to get the mission done. But nothing else was important to her other than Sasuke. She would rather fail the mission and save the Uchiha. He was important to her, nothing else. It would probably get her in trouble, but she could escape somewhere and just be alone with Sasuke. Stop. Your teammates are your friends and family. A successful team is built upon trust and understanding. Naruto, Sasuke, Sakura, if you are going to be successful as a team, you have to trust each other. You have to be able to trust each other during missions. He paused for a moment. Trusting each other means that you know that even if you are in a dangerous place, your teammate is watching your back. I have no problems with that, Naruto stated. Well, he certainly did not need Sakura to watch his back. He did not want anyone behind him. No one could get him from behind after all. As long as these two don't get in the way, I am fine with it, Sasuke grunted. He doubted that Sakura would be able to do anything other than be a burden. The girl had no skill whatsoever. I will trust you, Sasuke-kun. Kakashi sighed. This was going to be a big problem. He just hoped that the girl worked her issues before it was too late. Good. I will tell you this, it is a rule of Team 7. We never abandon our teammates. The lives of our teammates come before the mission. Those who break the rules are called trash, but those who abandon their teammates are worse than trash. Naruto knew that since Kakashi's father broke the rules, he was branded a traitor and everyone resented him for saving the lives of his teammates. The village resented him and the man ended up killing himself. Kakashi was still young and he dedicated himself to following the rules so that he would not be miserable like his father. But after being placed in Team Minato, and with Rin and Obito, he changed after realizing what was important. He had no problems with playing these people for a little while longer. Whatever ideals they preached, he would take them on with a smile, for now that is. Before we get our first mission, we have to get a team picture, Kakashi said, taking out his book. Come on, let us go, he said, motioning his students to follow him. Are you going to make us to those crappy D rank missions? Naruto questioned, looking at his own book. He would send a clone to do those kind of missions, after today. He knew what really happened with D rank missions. Yes, Kakashi said, giving Naruto one of his eye smiles that only Naruto saw. It seems that Naruto knew about this. Well, he would still enjoy the looks on both Sasuke and Sakura. Bloody hell. Naruto grunted distastefully. They should have academy students to do them as part of their training, the blonde stated in thought. That is not a bad idea, Naruto, Kakashi said. What is so bad with D-rank missions? Sakura asked curiously, wondering why Naruto would find them distasteful. She was not the only one who was curious. Her other teammate was also curious. If Naruto did not like them, then he was sure he would also not like them. Don't spoil the fun, Naruto, Kakashi said, because if Naruto told them, he would not be able to watch their expressions after the mission. I was not planning on telling them. Perhaps we should prepare a camera to capture the moment, Naruto stated in thought. Kakashi seemed to nod in agreement, both still looking into their books. Are you guys related? And why are you getting along so quickly? She was a bit jealous that Naruto was getting along with their sensei. It should be her and Sasuke getting well with their sensei, not the weirdo. But then again, both Kakashi and Naruto were a bit weird. Both Naruto and Kakashi shrugged in response. The four then walked in silence and got their picture taken at the Hokage Tower, on top of it. Only Sakura and Kakashi were smiling. Both Naruto and Sasuke just looked indifferent. Well, Sasuke added that with that dark look he always carried wherever he went. Team 7 reporting for first mission, Kakashi announced as they entered the mission room. The Sandaime looked at the team and smiled. I know just the perfect mission for you. Later. Bloody hell. Surprise, surprise, it wasn't Naruto who said those words. This is what you call a mission. Naruto shook his head silently. Your reaction was amusing when the Sandaime told us what the mission really was. But now it is just annoying. Do you even know that Sasuke doesn't like it when you shriek like that? Sakura glared at Naruto, but she didn't respond to him. She looked at Sasuke, who looked, well, not pleased that he had been forced to catch a cat for a mission. I will kill this cat if I am forced to chase it again, the Uchiha spoke darkly. No one had any doubt that he would do as he had just said. Naruto took out a kunai and walked over to the Uchiha as he was the one holding the cat. Let us just skin it now, he spoke, playing with the kunai in his right hand. Surprising, the cat reacted to his words. I have never seen the anatomy of a cat before. I am also curious if its intestines are very different from humans. And I need a new mat for my cave. This one has a nice color and still looks fresh. That was just creepy. The cat didn't wait to see if Naruto was joking or not. Before it could get any further on its escape, Sasuke spoke. I am not chasing after it again. Naruto looked at the cat. Run, Neko-chan. Go hide in the forest, but I will find you, and when I do, I will. Naruto, Kakashi called, getting the blonde to look at him. Just go get the cat. He certainly didn't need to hear what Naruto was going to say. He had already heard enough, and it was best for the health of his other students that Naruto was stopped from saying anything further. The blonde sighed. Fine, he said before walking calmly after the cat. A few minutes later, he returned without it. That was because it had run back when it saw that he was the one to chase after it. Kakashi sighed. He had thought it would take much more for them to get this done. But he had discovered something about this team. It was that their teamwork sucked. Sakura. He did not have to spell it out. Naruto, on the hand, was another story. He did not know what to think. During the chase, he looked like he would work with his teammates to catch the cat, and at some moments he looked like he was looking elsewhere. He knew that with Sasuke, if the Uchiha was in a dire situation, or forced, he would work together with someone. This just meant that he had to teach them some more teamwork exercises and more D-rank missions. Come on, let us go report back mission success so you can receive your pay, the Jonin said, motioning for his team to follow him. After that, we will head out to eat. How does that sound? Cool. Only Sakura sounded happy about the thought. A few minutes later, barbecue restaurant. Just to clear things out, you are paying since it was your idea that we get something to eat, Naruto stated before they entered the restaurant. He was not going to pay for something he had not planned on eating. If he was paying for anything, it was the delightful ramen cooked by a Yame. Kakashi looked at Naruto for a moment before sighing. Sure, as long as you don't eat much, he said. He wasn't looking forward to feeding someone who could eat like the Akamichi. If he did something like that, it would dry his pockets. Excellent, Naruto responded as he entered first. I can feel the smell of meat from here. A pity my pet won't be joining me. You have a pet? Sakura questioned curiously. She had no idea that Naruto had a pet. If anything, he did not seem like the type to have a pet. Moreover, she had never seen him with a pet. Yes, Naruto gave a short reply. I don't think I can call that thing a pet, Kakashi thought mildly. What Naruto actually called a pet was something dangerous. He had seen the teeth of this pet of Naruto. The thing could rip a full-grown shinobi into pieces in a matter of seconds. And it was also deadly fast, not to mention not too friendly. Asuma saw Kakashi walking into the restaurant with his students and smiled. He looked at his team, at Choji to be precise. The boy was consuming food like a pig. He was sure that he was going to be the one to pay for all these. If the other Jonin joined them, then he would have someone to share the burden of paying the bill. Nodding to himself, Asuma turned to Kakashi again. Kakashi, Asuma called, looking at the Jonin and his students. His eyes lingered on Naruto for a moment. Why don't you come and join us? Shikamaru sighed knowing that Kakashi wouldn't decline the offer. This meant that he would have to deal with Naruto. The combination of Ino and Sakura did not mix well for his hearing. Naruto was enough to deal with, and with how things ended with the academy, he was expecting Ino to be the object of Naruto's interests. Well, at least it would keep the blonde-haired girl from exchanging unpleasant words with Sakura. Sure, Kakashi responded as his students sat along with Team 10. Naruto chose to sit beside Ino, who didn't look too comfortably with him sitting next to her. But he did not speak to the girl first, he spoke to her teammates. Choji, Shikamaru, how are you two lovebirds doing? Ino felt somewhat disappointed that Naruto didn't start with her. Although she loved Sasuke, Naruto was fun. The blonde was unlike Sasuke, the one she loved. She liked how he was able to say anything he liked, how he was able to get her to blush, and how he made her laugh. He'd only started talking to her a few days ago, and yet she felt that she could use his smile much more often. She looked at Sasuke and smiled at him. The response was as she expected, nothing. Even though the response was the blank expression that was just screaming for her to shut up because she was annoying, she could not help it, she loved that boy. Now you are calling us lovebirds? Shikamaru asked, eyebrow quirked. Really, lovebirds? He and Choji were anything but that. Well, they did spend a lot of time together and were always seen together. He preferred to hang out with Choji than anyone else. Shikamaru stopped his trail of thoughts before he went to the other side of the moon. Naruto didn't bother to respond. He looked at Ino, who was busy in contest with her rival, Sakura. Hello, Ino-chan, the blonde greeted in a sweet tone and warm smile that was a little inviting. Naruto, Ino grunted. Although she was happy that he'd finally turned to her, she didn't show it. So, naturally, don't think of doing weird anything in front of Sasuke-kun or I will kill you, do you understand? The blonde Yamanaka heir threatened in a whisper, only for Naruto to hear her. This again, Sakura thought. She didn't hear anything the pig was saying to the weirdo. However, she didn't like it that they were talking. She didn't like the thought of Naruto getting along with Ino. She wanted nothing more than to separate them from each other. But she couldn't leave Sasuke's side. Naruto sighed inwardly. Well, he could leave her, for now. He smiled as a thought came to mind. So, Asuma-san, he started calmly, attracting the attention of the said Jonin. Naruto wasn't looking at the Jonin. He was holding his black book. But no one could see what was inside of it. Have you seen what is under those bandages of Kurenai-san? The reaction was instantaneous. The Jonin spat whatever that was inside his mouth before stuttering. What? Interesting, Naruto stated. So you have. I owe Anko $5 for this. I thought that Kurenai would be keeping your hands between your thighs and putting you under a genjutsu each time you attempted get under her. But I guess I was wrong. He closed his book before it disappeared. Single quote, single quote, single quote, single quote. Aren't you a little younger to be talking about such matters? Asuma asked quietly. His shocked features returned to normal as he did so. Still, he couldn't believe that the blonde would so bluntly ask such a question. I am turning 14 soon and I'm a shinobi. Naruto paused for a moment. So how was the? Asuma froze in shock, mouth gaping, while Kakashi dropped his book. Another bomb again. Damn, didn't this kid know some boundaries? That was a personal matter. Ouch. Naruto winced as Ino hit him on the forehead. He saw that everyone was looking at him. Even Kakashi had dropped his book. However, Sasuke was eating his meat like he'd heard nothing. What? We are all adults here. Well, some of us. Asuma cleared his throat. So Kakashi, how is your team? He said, trying to change the subject. He was hoping that Kakashi did not become perverted and sticks with Naruto's question. The question was just too personal. He didn't think that the blonde could ask him like that so bluntly, and he wondered why he would want to know such a thing. Okay. I guess, Kakashi responded with a small shrug of his shoulders. You should not hit me like that, Ino, especially when you were eagerly waiting for him to answer. And I know for certain that you had imagined your sensei and Kurenai lying somewhere. He trailed off when the girl gave him a warning glare. Aren't you even embarrassed to ask such a question? Ino asked. She would never say it aloud, but she'd let her thoughts wander. I was curious, and to satisfy my curiosity, I had to ask the question, Naruto responded calmly. I thought you would be all over, Prince Charming, by now. He whispered. Ino looked at Sasuke for a moment before sighing. I can't do that if he is ignoring me, now can I? When has that been a case for you? It isn't for flat, and it certainly wasn't for you. Naruto was now looking straight at the girl. Ino didn't respond. She looked at Sasuke and became silent. Naruto sighed. How dull. He looked at Shikamaru and Choji before looking at the Jonins. I have suddenly lost my appetite. I think ramen will do, he stated, standing up. You are leaving? Kakashi asked. Yes, Naruto responded calmly. Meet with the others at 8 a.m. tomorrow, training ground 7, Kakashi said. Tomorrow he would have his team do some teamwork exercises before they do the missions. They would probably do more than one tomorrow. He wanted them to do as many as possible before they moved for better missions. Naruto did not respond. He simply left without another word. Is he always like that? Asuma questioned, looking Kakashi. Yes, that is when he is not saying scary stuff, or trying to show off. Sasuke-kun, you didn't need to guess who could have given that sort of reply. It was Sakura. No one was surprised with her choice of words. It was to be expected from a fangirl. How scary? Ino questioned, suddenly interested in what the blonde may have said. If it came from Naruto's mouth, then it had to be interesting. I'd rather not talk about it, Sakura responded with a shrug of his shoulder. She looked at Ino curiously. You seem to get well with Naruto these days, the girl said after her observation between Naruto and her rival. As that's so, I had not noticed, Ino responded with a shrug, not even sparing a thought on the matter. How does it feel like to be genin, Sasuke-kun? That same response he always gave. It was even worse than when he outright ignored her. She wondered why he couldn't just smile at her like Naruto. She wondered if ping in her heart was pain. Ino shook her head, ridding of all the questions. She may have left the academy a few days ago, but the daunting truth has been striking her for some time now. And considering how Naruto has been interacting with her over the past few days, she was beginning to think it should be Sasuke doing it. Well, she wasn't going to give up that easily, especially with Sakura on the same team with him. Sakura. She was the reason she became pumped up when she thought of Sasuke. While she loved Sasuke, Sakura made things worse. She shook her head at the thoughts. How does it feel like being stuck with forehead, Sasuke-kun? She attempted to land a conversation with the Uchiha, but again, the response was the same. To add to the insult, Sakura opened her mouth. Leave Sasuke-kun alone, Ino pig. Chat with your teammates and leave my teammate alone, she put an emphasis on my, to drill it inside Ino's head that Sasuke was her teammate, not hers. If it was not enough that Sasuke was being indifferent towards her, Sakura had to remind her that she was the one put on a team with Sasuke. Somehow, she felt like she didn't want to be here anymore. I forgot that I have to help my mother at the flower shop, Ino said, standing up. I will see you tomorrow, guys. With that, the girl left. She is probably going after Naruto, Shikamaru thought. If she was down, she would go after the blonde since he had no doubt that Naruto could put a smile on her face. The blonde knew how to steer a conversation. The thought of the troubling blondes getting along did not make him feel better. Sasuke-kun can now focus on me since Ino Pig is gone, Sakura thought happily. Ikaraku ramen. Naruto sighed as he sat down with Ino beside him. The Yamanaka had followed him but did not say a word to him all the way towards here. He chose to remain quiet while he kept himself busy with his thoughts. Ayame quickly took notice of them before raising a curious eyebrow. You are replacing me already? Huh? Naruto questioned looking at the older teen. What are you talking about, Ayame? The tone he used was much friendly and lighter than Ino had ever heard. She didn't think that the blonde could make such a tone. But that only brought her to the conclusion that Naruto was much closer to the girl than anyone she had seen him with. Well, I thought I was your girlfriend. And how could you even bring a new girl where I work? Are you that heartless that you wish to see me suffer? Ayame questioned, looking absolutely hurt that Naruto would do something like that. Naruto smiled. It was the most beautiful smile Ino had ever seen from the blonde, but his eyes held a bit of mischievousness in them. You are my girlfriend, Ayame. No one will replace you. Ino is in love with someone anyway. Ayame nodded. I thought you were already thinking of replacing me. She paused for a moment and looked at Ino. I'm Ayame. She did not introduce herself as Naruto's boyfriend. This made Ino think that the previous scene was just an act. And besides, Naruto was a little younger for her. She did not think that her fellow blonde was into older woman. Ino, the girl introduced herself. Are you Naruto's friend? He has never mentioned your name before. Ayame had never heard Naruto say anything about Ino. She was certain if they were friends, he would have said something. Not really. Ino responded, smiling slightly. So how long have you known Naruto? He speaks to you in a friendly way than he does with anyone. Ayame smiled. I have known him ever since he was little. He was. Naruto spoke, cutting her off. Ayame, there is no need to tell Ino unnecessary things, the blonde spoke calmly. He did not need Ayame telling anyone about his life. He was never acting before Ayame. Fine. Ayame kind of huffed before turning heels. I will get your ramen. Before Ino could comment anything, Naruto spoke. So you could not handle Sasuke's indifference towards you and Sakura rubbing the fact that she is put on the same team with Sasuke. Surprisingly, Ino did not object. Kind of. I would have been yelling at Sakura and I did not wish to do that. I am shocked. That was Naruto's response. What? Ino glared. You are not what you seem. You are quite perceptive of things around you. Despite your little crush on Sasuke, your world doesn't evolve around him, but that doesn't make you much more of a shinobi, certainly. The fact that she was a little different from Sakura did not make her a better shinobi. It just made her a better fangirl. You just complimented and insulted me at the same time, Ino said. Well, at least he was willing to talk to her. I don't know whether to feel insulted or happy. Take the compliment, cause you are not going to get it anytime soon. Naruto responded. So, what do you want? I love Sasuke-kun and I want to be with him. My rivalry with Sakura has heated now since is in a team with him. I need your help to sort things out. It kinds of hurt when Sasuke-kun ignores me and I hate that Sakura is in a team with him. I need you to help me out, figure something out. What makes you think I can help you? You are Naruto, and you know how to get on someone's nerves. You are also a teammate of both Sakura and Sasuke-kun. Shikamaru says that you are smarter than anyone he knows. I'm sure you can figure out something. Naruto smiled. A few calculations went through and he responded. How will it benefit me if I help you out? Well, I'm sure we can figure something out. Good answer. Naruto responded, smiling. I will get Sasuke to spend a whole day with you. The following day, Training Ground 8. Kurenai was certainly like a mother to her students. Her way of handling brats was much different from the way either Kakashi or Asuma did. The latter Jonin always allowed his students to do as they pleased when he was not busy with them. Most of the Jonins took their job easy. They didn't seem to be intent on teaching their students usable ninja arts. But Kurenai actually worked her students. If it was not for the fact he and Sasuke had their own personal skills, their team wouldn't be the better team, before him that is. Kurenai declined her students well and worked their teamwork exercises as though in real battle. She was the better teacher than Kakashi. He certainly would not have minded if he was in her team. Moreover, she was a desirable woman. It was a pity that she was in love with Asuma and a little older than he was. If not, he would certainly not mind trying his luck. It was not much a surprise when Hinata spotted him since his Byakugan was activated. There was very little that could escape the sight of Dujutsu. He may be good at hiding his presence, but because he wasn't invincible, the so-called all-seeing eyes could spot him. But the girl didn't say a word to him. She merely continued on working on her teamwork exercises. Naruto had no doubt that Kurenai noticed that the girl had seen something despite not asking. After a few more minutes, Kurenai dismissed her students. But she stayed behind a little with Hinata. They talked for a few moments before the girl walked away with a smile on her face. Naruto had not bothered to follow what they were talking about since he assumed that Kurenai was acting like a mother to the Hyuga because she lacked a mother figure in her life. Genjutsu. Naruto realized as his senses went off. Kurenai was trying to trap him under an illusion, and he would have probably fallen for it if it was not for his senses. The scene did not change in front of him, but he figured that it was part of Kurenai's ploy. A normal genin wouldn't be able to detect it. Kai. Naruto dispelled the illusion before he jumped down from the tree he had been watching on. It seemed real. If it had not been for that I can sense chakra miles away, I would have fallen for it without realizing it. But it was still a surprise that he had been caught under the genjutsu to begin with. Since genjutsu was a little hard for him to do, he had made sure that he wasn't caught in one easily, and yet Kurenai had done it. Detecting genjutsu and dispelling it was an easy thing for him, using it was the problem. Well, his life was already a genjutsu, that should be enough. You dispelled the genjutsu easily, and was able to detect it quickly, Kurenai stated, observing the genin calmly. It wasn't a strong genjutsu she had used, she did not even use hand seals to do it. But for a genin, more precisely a genin who just graduated from the academy, to dispel it like it was nothing was a surprise to her. That is only because the genjutsu was weak. I didn't see you doing hand seals, though I did sense usage of chakra. I didn't think that you were going to put a genjutsu on me. Naruto paused for a moment. But then again, you are a genjutsu master, nothing less should be expected. It would have been a compliment if it was coming from a jonin, Kurenai stated, walking towards the blonde, who was leaning against the tree trunk of the tree he had been hiding on. Naruto was just a genin. Surely his opinion did not carry much weight than the opinion of an experienced jonin who has faced multiplied opponents. Naruto waited for Kurenai to settle down before he responded. You think my opinion has little weight? It was as if he had read her thoughts, but she did not say anything as it seemed that he was not done talking. Never underestimate anyone, even a genin like me, Kurenai. But you should know that, right? Kurenai nodded. Never underestimate your opponent. It was one of the basic shinobi rules, one that she would never forget. You said that you sensed my chakra, and if you had not sensed chakra usage, you would not have realized it was a genjutsu. Are you a sensor? Naruto looked down on her. Can you keep a secret? He questioned, in a slight serious tone. It was done to put some emphasis on the matter. Kurenai didn't know what he was going to say, but she just nodded. Yes, she could keep a secret. If Naruto did not wish for her to tell anyone what he was going to tell her, she would keep the secret, as long as it was not dangerous or one that would get her into trouble. I'm a sensor type of shinobi. Years of being chased by dangerous animals in the forest of death has honed my skills to a degree that I can differentiate between hostile and friendly chakras. But I can get it wrong sometimes, Naruto explained before lying on the ground on his back with his head resting on both his hands, just beside Kurenai. No wonder he had a play with Anko. Kurenai thought in surprise. Sensor types of shinobi are very rare in this village. She knew that her friend, Yugao, was a sensor type of shinobi, but she was not going to tell Naruto that. Why did you tell me this anyway? I know for sure that this ability is not in your file. I need your help. Naruto started smoothly. Genjutsu is my weakness. I can't perform it to perfection. My skills in genjutsu are just laughable. However, I am rather good at detecting it. You are a genjutsu master. There is no better helper than that. Kurenai was silent for a few moments. Naruto was certainly not a little boy, neither were his fellow academy graduates. Some of them had already turned 14 at this time of the year. 14 years for a shinobi were not something small. I have a team to train and I must also keep my training. Since you already have a sensei, I do not think that it would be allowed for me to teach you anything, unless the Sandaime grants a special permission. Naruto sighed. I had expected such an answer, he mumbled, looking at the green leaves up ahead. There was no sadness or disappointment in his tone, it was completely neutral. Yet, you still came. Yap. But how about this? You tell me the time at you do your own personal training and I will crash in on your training, and beg you to give me a few pointers, Naruto stated, looking at Kurenai at the corner of his eyes. When I mean beg, I mean rolling on the ground while crying like a 1-year-old, seeing the look on Kurenai's face, the blonde smiled, just kidding. You may not be, the Genjutsu mistress sighed. Fine, I will help you. You were here for quite some time, did you finish early with your team? Yes, Naruto responded. You keep your students much more busy than Kakashi does. Well, we have only been a team for a few days, perhaps things will change, it was highly unlikely though. There would only be a change if someone died. Well, Kakashi is known for his tardiness, Kurenai responded, looking at the blonde carefully. He couldn't be acting just to get closer to her. She may have thought devil yesterday, but he didn't look so evil. Yes, Naruto nodded in agreement with the Jonin. How are you handling your team anyway? Kiba speaks when he wishes, but he doesn't lack confidence, he is just a little arrogant. Saying a little arrogant is an understatement, Kurenai stated. With all the confidence Kiba he had, he was just as much arrogant. And she was already thinking that it would take more to down the arrogance on the boy, but it was still early. A lot could change in the next months. Naruto chuckled at Kurenai's words. He certainly is arrogant. Perhaps it comes with the Inuzuka blood. But his elder sister is not like that. Maybe another factor is that he is still a mere genin. When he does grow up, perhaps his thinking may also mature. Kurenai nodded. With age and experience comes maturity, she added. But as not everyone who learns, he knew for certain that no matter how some shinobi were beat down, they would do the same thing over and over again until they were dead. Arrogance came with pride, and those things were very dangerous to a shinobi. Again, Kurenai nodded in agreement. How do you know Kiba's sister, anyway? She takes care of my pet when he has bad day hunting, Naruto responded calmly. Other Inuzuka didn't know how to deal with his pet, and there was the fact that it just did not allow anyone to touch it. Any idiot trying to touch would surely get some permanent bite marks or even lose a hand or two. You have a pet. I have never heard of that before. Not even Anko has said that Naruto was a pet, and the other woman seemed to know Naruto more than anyone does. Yes, Naruto gave her a blank smile. Perhaps you may see him someday. He changed the subject to where he had been. As I was saying, you have Kiba, Shino and Hinata whose lack of confidence and gentleness do not make her a good candidate for a shinobi. If she isn't handled well, she may be killed while trying to help out an enemy. That is a little harsh, Kurenai stated, noting that his tone never changed from being neutral. If he was able to know this about her students, then he was highly observant, despite his outward appearance. She could guess why he didn't say anything about Shino. The boy was trained well, but he too had his own faults. But it is the truth, and painting it with happy colors will not make it any better, don't you agree? That is true. Her method of dealing with the issues would be gentle. Naruto would surely not say anything in a comforting way to anyone. You seem to know more about other students. Naruto nodded. I studied them during my first month with them. I am a curious person, so I did not find it a problem to study them. The results had been a disappointment though, the disappointment was hinted in the tone of his voice. A curious person. So you are the kind of person who sees a fire and rushes over it to uncover the mystery behind its existence. She paused for a moment. She was certain that Naruto wasn't going to deny that. What do you think of Team 10? She was a little interested in hearing his opinion. His observation over her team was accurate. They have a good sensei in Asuma. Shikamaru relies too much on his mind to solve everything. But there are times when he is going to face an enemy who is smarter than him and holds overwhelming power that he cannot comprehend. And when that does happen, he will be in trouble. You see, in this world, you can't depend too much on anything. You don't know when your mind or power will fail you. It is not in every situation where you will be allowed to think. And when you can't think, you have to use your shinobi instincts to survive. Choji is another matter. He is not stupid by any chance. For someone who just graduated from the academy, he is acceptable. However, the fact that he would rather eat than train puts a flaw in his lifestyle. Ino is a smart girl. She may not seem that way, but she is smart and highly observant. She may be even smarter than Sakura. What gives Ino the advantage is that she does not need to read a book to know something, she looks around her to learn. And if she grows like that, little may miss her. However, she has many faults that put her decision to become a shinobi questionable. The girl has no time to train and her fangirl attitude makes her a burden than anything. She is also not someone who can fight on her own without support. When she uses her Yamanaka techniques, her body becomes open for attacks. Kurenai was surprised. She did not know as much as Naruto did. Even though the blonde spent year with them, he should not be able to know so much. The belief that he was an idiot was thrown out of the window. Thinking of what Anko had told her, she could understand why it was easy for him to be manipulative. He could prey on his peers' weakness because he knew them. Anko was right. This blonde Gaki is dangerous. You are informed. You know that much about your peers. I have no doubt you know what makes them all tick. You did say you studied them all, Kurenai stated, looking at the blonde with a critical eye. Information is essential for a shinobi. You speak like an experienced shinobi, yet you have not been wearing that headband for not more than a handful of days, Kurenai stated, still looking down at the blonde with a critical eye. I think I am in love with you. That was out of nowhere. What? The look on his face told her that he meant what he said. But it could be a genjutsu. That is not funny, Naruto. Naruto sighed. I thought it might be, he said. You know much about me, how about you tell me about yourself? I think I will not. I am putting you on a trial run, Kurenai stated. Naruto merely smiled. You are the kindest jonin I have ever met. You treat your students with motherly care and gentleness. And despite everything Anko told you about me, you are willing to talk to me honestly and still look at me without doubt, suspicion and wariness. You were willing to help me out with my training. I will always remember that. He got to his feet and gave her his hand. We should be leaving, it's already late. He said so, giving her a warm smile, which Kurenai was sure it was not faked. Sure. She took his hand, and it was surprisingly gentle. How about I take you out to eat something? It will be a date. No. It was a firm no. That would have stopped anyone from another attempt, but not Naruto. Come on. I won't tell Asuma. It will be our little secret. Naruto was by now in front of Kurenai, giving her a look that clearly said he was not going to take no for an answer. Fine. Kurenai sighed. Just this once and don't get any funny ideas, or you may regret it. How do you even know that Asuma, and I, are you know? Kurenai questioned as she settled down on seat across Naruto. They had arrived at a small restaurant within the civilian district. She had never been to this place before, yet Naruto knew of it even though she had been living in this village much longer than him. It's obvious to everyone, Naruto responded calmly, looking at the menu. The food was quite expensive, though. But every now and then he liked to eat something good aside from ramen. You think you are hiding it, but you are certainly not. Kurenai sighed. Anko told me that before, she said. For someone your age, you act quite mature. It does not feel like I am babysitting a brat, but it feels like I am chatting with an actual gentleman. From their talk at the training ground, Naruto has been talking like someone her age, instead of the 13-year-old boy he was. The blonde smiled. When you are faced with angry and hateful stares from almost everyone you come across, you are forced to grow up quickly. Moreover, when you are an orphan, you don't really have a choice but to grow up on your own and become your own parent. A pity that he had to grow like that, Kurenai thought. Most kids don't think like that. Even when they are orphans, they think that someone will help them one day, or just turn into criminals to make a living. I had no option to think that someone would help me. Living alone in those early years, I knew perfectly well that no one was just going to come at my house and help me out. I was living on my own before I was even 5 years old, Naruto said, surprising Kurenai. It was the help of the Sandame that I was able to afford my living, barely though. It must have been tough being on your own, Kurenai stated. It was certainly had to be tough being the pariah of the village. Being a Jinchuriki was certainly not healthy for the mind. However, aside from what Anko calls Naruto, he was certainly a nice person. Before Naruto could respond, a waitress came along to take their orders. She looked at Naruto with a raised brow. Naruto, she said, smiling a bit. Hello, Aika. You are still looking lovely, it seems, the blonde stated, handing the older teen the menu. Yes, I am, she eyed Kurenai. You normally bring girls around my age, but I did not think that you were into older women, Naruto. I am a shinobi, what is wrong with that? Naruto, Kurenai warned. The blonde sighed. Just get me and Kurenai-san the usual, please. He stated, not looking forward to say anything that may make this day unpleasant. He knew firsthand that women were quite scary. And someone like Kurenai would certainly make him experience horrible things. Fine, Aika said, walking away from the two. Who said I will like what you ordered? He had not even asked her what she wanted. He just ordered what he presumed she would like. It was very different from any date she has ever been into. Even with Asuma, she ordered her own food. You will like it, I know for certain. But I could be wrong. I have been before, the blonde responded casually, looking straight into her ruby eyes. How often do you come here? Every now and then. It was not a precise answer that Kurenai wanted, but it was also acceptable. So when you come here every now and then, you bring women here, it was certain not a question. With what the waitress had said, it was obvious to her that Naruto always brought someone with him. And it was clear that he didn't bring girls his age. She was starting to think that he may be into older women and may have possibly lured her here to try his luck. Yep, he did not deny it. It was not worth the effort. So do you always take them to your apartment after the date? She questioned. It would not be a surprise to her if he had already lost his virginity. This was the shinobi world, anything was possible. She had seen what younger boys can do, especially those who become criminals and join bandits. Naruto looked amused. Era, are you already thinking of going home with me? Do you think Asuma will appreciate it if he found out you spent your night at a 13-year-old's cave? Kurenai was silent for a few moments. She then laughed at the thought of seeing Asuma's face if she happened to cheat on him with a 13-year-old. It would be hilarious. Anko would certainly agree. No, she said. But Asuma would probably kill you. Probably. Naruto agreed. Before he could say anything, Aika brought their food and left without saying anything further. But it would make the headlines, nay. The Ice Queen of Konoha was found in the bed of a 13-year-old genin. It was a kind of story the author of Flirting Paradise would like. Yes, but it would be morally wrong though. What kind of a grown-up woman sleeps with a 13-year-old boy? One who has no value for morals. In the shinobi world, morals are set at a low standard. You may find some even applauding the idea, Naruto responded, digging into his food. What did you do to that girl anyway? Nothing. She is always like that. She pretends not to see any person I bring here, Naruto responded with a small shrug of his shoulders. Kurenai nodded, not looking forward to finding out more about the matter. You diverted my question, earlier. She said, looking at her food, not at the blonde across her. I have not taken any to my apartment, Naruto responded with a sigh. And the girls I normally bring here are travelers who know nothing about me. You kind of pray, that actually slipped out. She did not mean to say it. But Naruto was not offended by it. Anko is spreading wild rumors about me, he looked amused about it though. Well, aren't you the devil? Naruto shook his head. If I was, don't you think I would have manipulated Hinata already? Kurenai knew what he was talking about. Perhaps she is just not your type. You don't seem to play with girls your age. I am just a 13-year-old genin, Kurenai. I am no devil. He gave her a small smile that was a little too nice. Anko is just bitter. She is still angry at me for violating her and she calls me devil just to screw with everyone. I have no doubt she would like to see me suffer. And I think that she is just waiting for the day I let my guard down so that she can torture me as payback. Well, do you blame her? Not really. Naruto shrugged. You still seem to get along quite well, Kurenai stated. They seem to get along together despite what Anko says when the blonde is not looking. It was clear that Naruto is aware of what Anko says behind his back, yet he does not seem to care much about it. That we do. Well, we have a mutual understanding and she gets what she wants, and I get what I want. What? Naruto motioned for Kurenai to learn closer to him. Anko teaches me about women and how to have my way with them. She also teaches me about foreplay and has turned me into a great kisser. He paused for a moment. Well, I won't say what I do for Anko. But it is not anything wrong. Kurenai stared at Naruto for a few moments before shaking her head. What do you want anyway? I doubt you would have brought me here and told me so much without a purpose. I didn't tell you. This is a date. When people are on a date, they get to know each other. I have told you all that I have so you can know me better. I have no doubt that people get to know each on dates, but you are just a 13-year-old boy. I think I am in love with you. He repeated those words, again, in the same tone, expression and eyes that reflected nothing but innocence. Kurenai could have blushed at that warm, charming smile and sweet tone. She almost blushed. Almost. She stared at Naruto for a minute trying to search for answers, but she got nothing. I give up, she said. As I said before, you are the kindest Jonin I have ever met. Your heart is full of warmth and you are always looking forward to help. All my life I have been surrounded by people who were always staring at me hatefully, but now I am trying to make friends with someone who is older and open-minded. And since you will be my sensei in part-time, who is to say we can't do this? You sound honest. Don't believe it. Well, believe it, because that is the truth. They then ate in silence. When it was time to leave, Naruto looked at Kurenai sheepishly. I think I left my wallet at home, will you pay? No. Kurenai gave a firm no. Wow, what a stingy woman, Naruto stated as he raised his hand calling Aika. The older girl arrived, smiling. Put it on my tab. Aika sighed before nodding. I hope you enjoyed your meal. Come again next time, she said to Kurenai. I did. She would certainly force Asuma to bring her here. The two then made their way out of the restaurant in peace. Well, that was certainly worthwhile. Kurenai nodded, before smiling at Naruto. Thank you for the meal, Naruto. Come by tomorrow so we can begin with your training. If you don't find me at the training ground, search for me. You did say you were a censor, it should be a good practice for you. She then disappeared via Shunshin. Naruto placed his hands inside his pockets before looking at the dimly lit sky. That was not a bad start, he thought, waiting for someone to finally take their appearance before him. What were you doing with that woman? A young woman said, walking towards Naruto. She stared at him for a few moments, before looking into the sky as he was. She looked back at him because there was nothing that she found interesting. I was just thanking her for the help she is going to give me. Naruto responded with a small shrug of his shoulders. His gaze then settled on the person in front of him. He studied her entire outlook for a second before he walked past her, prompting her to follow him from behind. Okay. The young woman paused, trying to think of what Kurenai would be doing for Naruto. But she couldn't find anything that would make Naruto take interest in the older woman. How about we hit the hot springs? She suggested with a playful smile on her face. This late? Naruto asked. Since when has that been a problem for you? And besides, it is the only place we can talk while I ogle you. I've also missed you. Fine, Naruto stated. How was your stay in Kumogakure? It was pleasant. The only that was not satisfying about the village was that you weren't around. Nevertheless, I got all the work done and gathered valuables, the older teen responded quietly. I only returned now because I wasted all my cash. I'm thinking you can fill me, so that I can take my assignment and leave this village. I'm broke. I used my remaining funds to purchase this joint, he said, referring to the restaurant behind him. And I can't always be supplying you with money. This time you will prostitute yourself to get it. Well, if you are buying, I won't mind selling. A tempting offer, but I'll have to decline, Naruto responded as the two continued to walk in the streets of the civilian district, heading to the direction of the hot springs.